Chapter 128. Do you like me? His voice seemed to have the ability to hook one's soul, causing Yin to be rooted to the ground, unable to move at all. He couldn't help but gulp. Xiao Zhu frowned slightly. Yin? Yin subconsciously curled her fingers and dug her fingertips into her palms. She didn't feel it when this person was lazy, but when he got close, even his aura became extremely dangerous. He raised his eyebrows, curled his lips, and asked again, almost bewitchingly, "Do you like me?" "No, I don't like you." Yin subconsciously curled her fingers and dug her fingertips into her palms. The pain cleared her mind for a moment so that she wouldn't say something shocking. She looked at Lin Shuanghe, who was standing at the side and was also stunned. Hearing this, Xiao Zhu didn't get angry. Instead, she seemed to be slightly relieved. She stood up straight and raised her eyebrows. "Very good, it's you." "Me?" The ambiguous atmosphere just now was swept away. Yin took a step back and couldn't help but look at him. "What do you mean by me?" "Madam Qiao." "Madam Qiao?" Yin was confused. Lin Shuanghe seemed to have suddenly understood. He walked over and said, "You're finally willing to listen to me. You think that my sister, he is the best choice, right?" Yin was even more confused. "It's a long story." "Then take your time." Yin went to get a stool for them. Xiao Zhu glanced at her, turned her head, and reminded her, "Put on your clothes first." Yin looked down. When Lin Shuanghe knocked on the door, she casually put on her clothes and didn't put them on properly. Now that she was bending over to get a stool, her clothes slipped off her shoulders. Lin Shuanghe said, "I didn't see anything." Yin felt that Xiao Zhu was making a mountain out of a molehill. It wasn't like she wasn't wearing undergarments inside. What should be covered was tightly covered. Second young Master Xiao was too gentlemanly. But since he had already said it, she had to sort it out. After she was done, she listened to Xiao Zhu tell her the important parts of the story. Yin slammed the table. "Does Commander-in-Chief mean that you and I should disguise ourselves as husband and wife and set off for Jiang? This is ruining my reputation. If he pretended to be a nephew, he would have to call Xiao Zhu uncle. If he pretended to be a husband and wife, he would have to call Xiao Zhu husband." Yin couldn't bear to look at the way he called Xiao Zhu hubby. "Ruin your reputation?" Xiao Zhu narrowed her beautiful eyes and sneered. "You feel wronged?" Yin. That was true. In the eyes of others, Xiao Zhu's reputation would most likely be ruined if this matter were to spread out. But wouldn't it be embarrassing for him to do whatever he wanted? It was rare that Xiao Zhu had a favor to ask of him. Yin held his head high and was about to raise the price and extort him when he heard Xiao Zhu say casually, "If you do this, you can join the Southern Mansion Army." Yin, deal. Lin Shuanghe felt a headache coming on. "Sister you are a girl. You should be more reserved." "Then I'm afraid you have overestimated her." Xiao Zhu mocked. "How could she have that kind of thing?" "Being reserved is not worth mentioning in this kind of situation." Yin giggled and said, "Commander-in-Chief, don't worry. I can definitely act as a good wife and win face for you. I'll let others envy you and praise you for the good fortune you've accumulated over several lifetimes." Xiao Zhu suppressed her anger and said calmly, "Qiao Huanqing's wife is a famous talented woman in Dawei." Yin's self-praise came to an abrupt end. Proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, he glanced at Yin with a bit of pity, obedient, sensible, and considerate. These 16 words, "May I ask which one is related to you?" "Human-like," Yin answered honestly. Lin Shuanghe couldn't help but laugh. Halfway through, he felt that it was inappropriate and said, "Nonsense. Xiao Huaijin, you are talking nonsense again. How is sister he not obedient, sensible, and considerate? As for zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting," he looked at Yin, "do you know how to do it?" Yin, "Not really." Xiao Zhu sneered. Lin Shuanghe immediately said, "That's okay. I know how to do it. Don't you have to wait for a few days before you set off with me? Before you set off, I promise that I will teach you. I don't dare to say that I will be very good at it, but I will definitely be able to deceive that group of uncouth people. Xiao Huaijin, leave sister he to me. In less than 5 days, I will give you a different kind of graceful woman. She is short, stupid, and has no talent. Then it will be hard on you," Xiao Zhu said casually. She stood up and walked to He-Yan's side, staring straight at him. He-Yan felt goosebumps from her stare. Xiao Ju leaned closer, tilted his head, and smiled. But I can't say for sure. After all, Our Lady, he is the best at deceiving people. He-Yan, Xiao Ju always made praises sound derogatory. My good wife will make others envious of me. I will... His gaze deepened, and he smiled faintly. I will wait and see. He left. The door closed, and the sound of the door being locked could be heard. He-Yan heaved a sigh of relief and sat on the couch. Lin Xuanhe also stood up and smiled. It's getting late. I will leave first. Sister He, I will look for you tomorrow. Let's familiarize ourselves with the four arts. He-Yan nodded. Lin Xuanhe wanted to say something, but stopped. He-Yan asked, Dr. Lin, is there anything else? He looked at He-Yan with a complicated expression. Nothing. He waved his fan and left. After the door closed behind him, Lin Xuanhe sighed and pressed his chest. He had boasted to Xiao Ju that He-Yan didn't like Xiao Ju and was most comfortable with her. This was true. After all, He-Yan didn't sense a trace of affection for Xiao Ju in their previous conversation. However, just now, when Xiao Ju approached He-Yan, Lin Xuanhe clearly saw He-Yan's nervousness and helplessness. Something didn't seem right. It didn't seem like he was completely uninterested in Xiao Ju. What was going on? Lin Xuanhe was burning with anxiety. If He-Yan actually liked Xiao Ju, wouldn't they get into trouble on this trip? No. It must be because Xiao Ju was too beautiful. When the woman saw his face, she was instantly captivated by his beauty. She wouldn't feel anything after seeing him a few more times. He comforted himself. It must be so. He sat on the couch in the room. Xiao Ju actually asked him to pretend to be her husband and wife when they went to Jiang. This was unbelievable. Not to mention her, just the fact that Xiao Ju was pretending to be someone else's wife would make people doubt their ears. Now that he knew the origin of the Nine Flags Battalion, He didn't have much hope that he could really enter the Nine Flags Battalion. Those who could enter the Nine Flags Battalion were Xiao Ju's brothers who had risked their lives to stand up for her. They were heroes who had risked their lives to stand up for her. This had to do with ability. Presumably, the Nine Flags Battalion wouldn't easily recruit people in the future. It was also good to be able to enter the Nan Mansion Army. In Dawei, the Nan Mansion Army was well known for its fighting prowess. However, He-Yan readily agreed to Xiao Ju's proposal. Even if these conditions didn't exist, she would still make concessions in the end. This was because the place Xiao Ju proposed was Jiang. He-Yan's master was the passerby who saved her from the pile of corpses during the Battle of Mo County in her previous life. He was also a strange person who later taught her how to arrange troops, set up formations, and use swords, bows, and horses. His name was Lu Buang. When they parted that year, she once asked Lu Buang, Master, if I want to find you one day, where should I go? We'll meet if fate wills it. Lu Buang smiled and said, But if you insist on finding me for something important, you can go outside Jiang City. I'll eventually arrive here. She remembered it in her heart. Now that He Rufei was dead, she accidentally received such a strange mission. But if she really went to Jiang, she might be able to see Lu Buang. In her previous life, other than the He family, only Lu Buang knew her identity. She really wanted to see her master. Jiang. He sighed slightly. He actually began to hesitate in his heart. She didn't know if she could see him. She also didn't know if Lu Buang could still deny her identity. She was very nervous. The next morning, He woke up early and had breakfast. She wanted to go to the martial arts practice field for day training. As soon as she walked to the door, she was stopped by someone outside the courtyard. Brother He. She turned around and saw Lin Xuanhe. He asked, Brother Lin, why are you here? Judging from his appearance, he should have arrived long ago. Lin Xuanhe waved his fan and said, I'll wait for you here. He looked up and down at He-Yan's black clothes and asked, Where are you going? Day training at the martial arts practice field. I haven't run yet in the morning. Dr. Lin, I'll tell you later. If you don't go now, it'll be too late. Hey. Lin Xuanhe stood in front of her and said, If you're talking about day training, you don't have to go for the time being. I've asked Huijin to inform Chief Instructor Shun that you don't have to go for the next few days. Ian asked, why? Did you forget that you'll be going to Jiang in a few days? Lin Shuanga smiled and said, there are priorities. The martial arts practice field is right here. When you come back from Jiang, you can train however you want. However, you don't have much time left. Of course, you have to hurry up and do what's in front of you. Ian was puzzled. What's in front of me? Look. Lin Shuanga pointed to Ian. On the stone table in the courtyard, there was a zither, a chess set, a few pieces of paper, a brush, ink, and an inkstone. The Liangzhou Guard was a place for men to practice martial arts. When he suddenly saw these elegant things, for a moment, Yin thought that Xu Zhao had returned. Since you're going to act as Xiao Huanqing's wife, you have to know a little about zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. When King Mingji was still alive, he admired literati very much. In Jiang City, the vassal king's territory, the people worshipped talented people. Coincidentally, Xiao Huanqing's wife, Wen Yuyin, was also a famous talented woman. Lin Shuanga said, you're very good-looking, and your skills are also very reassuring. You can't make any mistakes in this area. Come, write something for me to see. Yin was speechless. For a moment, Yin felt that he was back in Shuajing's Xianchan Gymnasium. He and Lin Shuanghe, who was also in last place, were about to sit down and recite to each other. Lin Shuanghe didn't seem to realize that his words had brought back nightmares. He was still urging him, come, brother, he writes something. Let me see how you're doing. This person had nothing to do all day. Yin was too lazy to argue with him, so he immediately picked up the brush and wrote something. Annoying. This word was written in a flamboyant and messy style. When Lin Shuanghe saw this, he stopped waving his fan. He was probably afraid that he would hurt Yin, so he said in a gentler tone, brother, his writing is quite spirited, but it's a bit too spirited. Don't you think that a woman's writing should be gentler? Yin felt that there was a problem with his words, so he immediately asked, who said that a woman's writing should be gentler? According to what Dr. Lin said, men can't write hairpin style, small regular script? Yes, Lin Shuanghe said, but even if it's not gentler, it shouldn't be so sloppy. Yin was speechless. Lin Shuanghe said, it's fine. Why don't you draw a picture? Just draw a picture of plum blossoms reflecting snow. It should be more than enough to fool those people from Jiang. Yin spread out the paper and raised his hand to draw 3 flowers and a few dots of snow that looked like pockmarks. Lin Shuanghe looked at it and asked suspiciously, brother, are you drawing a fried sesame seed cake? Did you accidentally fry the sesame seeds? Yin said, I only know how to draw maps. This happened one after another. Lin Shuanghe began to panic. He said, what about chess? Do you know how to play chess? My chess skills are very bad, and I like to regret my moves. I'm afraid that I can't play chess. Otherwise, I won't be able to control myself, and it won't be good if people see me as a joke. What about the zither? You're a zither master, right? Lin Shuanghe's eyes were filled with despair. Now, there are girls in the residence who have to start learning the zither from the age of 5. Yin spread his hands. I don't know anything about musical instruments. The two of them looked at each other, and the atmosphere was awkward and silent. Yin felt very uncomfortable and wronged. She had been raised as a boy since she was young, so she didn't learn the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Later, she went to the Xianchan school, but she wasn't very good at learning. Even when a pie fell from the sky in the end, and she received the guidance of a famous teacher in Liu Buwang, who taught her all his skills, it was all about surviving on the battlefield. The zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting could neither make her bleed less on the battlefield, nor help her win more battles in the battle. For her, it was too extravagant. She didn't have the conditions, and she didn't have the time. Of course, the most important thing was that she didn't have the talent. Yin wasn't the only one who felt wronged. Lin Shuanghe also felt wronged. He had seen so many noble ladies in Shuajing, and each of them was good at least 3 kinds of talents. Everyone knew how to play the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, but Yin couldn't even do it? Lin Shuanghe suddenly doubted himself. Was it wrong for him to suggest to Xiao Ju that Yin should play Wen Yuyin? Dr. Lin? Yin saw that Lin Shuanghe hadn't said anything, and she was afraid that Lin Shuanghe was frightened by her lack of talent. So she asked with concern. Lin Shuanghe came to his senses and forced a smile. Nothing. I'm thinking about something. It was needless to say how exquisite it was when it was so bad. It could only be said that she had learned the most ordinary skills, and then she just needed to put on a show. There was a ready-made female teacher in the Liangzhou Guards, Shin Muxue, who was very talented. However, if Shin Muxue knew that He Yin was a woman and was asked by Xiao Ju to play the role of husband and wife, he was afraid that something would go wrong. Although Lin Shuanghe didn't care about Shin Muxue, he didn't want to see any girl sad. Forget it, if he didn't go to hell, who would? Lin Shuanghe looked at He Yin. His heart was bleeding, but he gritted his teeth and smiled. Brother He, you don't need to panic. As long as you work hard, you can grind an iron pestle into a needle. If you have a will, you can achieve anything. Since you don't know how to do it, let me teach you. We'll learn from the beginning, and I'm sure we'll be able to impress others. He Yin saw that this person was inexplicably excited, so she coughed lightly. That? Dr. Lin, do you know how to do it? If she remembered correctly, Lin Shuanghe was ranked last with her in the past. What qualifications did he have to teach others? Lin Shuanghe opened his folding fan and proudly said, I don't know anything else, but I know how to paint. Watch me. Late at night, the sharp sound of a zither could be heard from the room next door. Fei Nu was helping Xiao Ju tidy up the documents on the table. When she heard the sound, her hands trembled and the documents scattered in a mess. He looked up at Xiao Ju again. Xiao Ju reached out her hand to support her forehead. She looked like she couldn't bear it. Fei Nu secretly sighed. He Yin shone brightly in the martial arts arena. He knew everything, but he didn't expect him to be so slow when it came to zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. This zither, if it was any girl in the capital who learned the zither, even if she was 5 years old, she would be able to play it much better than this. 3 days, 3 whole days. They would be leaving in 2 days, but He Yan's zither was just a wall away. He didn't seem to be improving at all. It was as if because he was getting impatient, his music was getting worse and worse. Chi Wu was an impatient person. He secretly pulled Fei Nu aside a few times and said, If you don't know how to play, then don't play. Young master must be crazy. It's fine if he found a man to pretend to be his wife, but he even found one who doesn't know how to do anything. Isn't this giving others a chance to find out? Even if there's a shortage of people, it shouldn't be like this. He still didn't know He Yan's identity as a woman, so Fei Nu didn't say much. He only said, talk less, do more. But tonight, Fei Nu muttered in his heart. He Yan was so slow. Could he really bear such a heavy responsibility? Suspense. In the room next door, Lin Shuanghe waved his hand and said weakly, Younger sister He, that's enough. You can stop playing. He Yan stopped and looked at him. He humbly asked, Brother Lin, have I improved compared to yesterday? Lin Shuanghe choked and was speechless. Although he wasn't outstanding in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, he was still an elegant young master in the capital. He still knew a thing or two about these things. He originally thought that with his guidance, even if he couldn't practice very well in 3 days, he would at least be able to put on a show. But looking at He Yan's current appearance, he realized that he had overestimated himself. He had never seen such a stubborn woman. After 3 days, not only did she not improve, she played more and more harshly. Lin Shuanghe finally realized that there was actually someone in the world who could play the zither with such a sound. It was said that one was marked by the company one kept. Xiao Ju was also a master in both literature and martial arts. Her elegance was unparalleled. He Yin had been with Xiao Ju for so long, but why didn't he have the slightest bit of elegance? Yet this girl still looked like she was very hardworking. Seeing how hardworking she was, he couldn't even say harsh words. This reminded Lin Shuanghe of a classmate when he was young. That classmate was also like this. His head hung from a beam, and an awl pierced his thigh. It was too horrible to look at. Forget it, forget it. This child couldn't be taught. Lin Shuanghe stood up and said with a smile, Good, very good. Younger sister you're really talented. As long as you practice a little harder, you'll definitely amaze the world. You should practice for the next few days. When you reach Jiang, you can ask Huijin to personally give you a few pointers. I think you'll be able to graduate from his apprenticeship. Ian? Really? Lin Shuanghe. It can't be any more real. He thought that Ian was really too difficult to handle. It was better for him to retreat early. This kind of complicated teaching should be left to Xiao Ju. After all, Ian was his person and his wife. This was also Xiao Ju's responsibility. When he thought of this, he felt relieved and relaxed. Lin Shuanghe smiled and said, "Then I won't be coming for the next 2 days. Younger sister, you should practice more, practice more." He was debt-free and left lightly. Ian was still skeptical. She clearly felt that it was unpleasant, but Lin Shuanghe said it like that. Was it really that good? The interests of elegant people were indeed different from those of ordinary people. In the next 2 days, besides practicing the zither, Ian also found time to bid farewell to Hongshan and the others. Jiang was not like Liangzhou City. If he came and went, he would probably be away for at least half a year and would not be able to return to the Liangzhou City guards. He missed his old friends after not seeing them for such a long time. "You want to work with Military Governor Xiao again?" Hongshan came closer and asked, are you going to be promoted?" "Give birth? What do you mean by giving birth?" Xiaomai was roasting a bird's egg that he had just picked up from the fire. It was very hot. He flipped it around in his palm. "Who's giving birth?" Shi Tu gently knocked his head and looked at Ian. "Take care." Ian smiled. "Of course. I haven't congratulated you guys on entering the Vanguard Battalion. After the end of the year, a portion of the new recruits were selected to enter the Vanguard Battalion. Shi Tu, Jiang Jiao, Wang Ba, and Huang Xiong were among them. Xiaomai was still young and did not perform well in training. Hongshan had always been average in all aspects. Fortunately, the two of them did not mind this. They were satisfied with being ordinary soldiers. Entering the Vanguard Battalion is not as good as you. Wang Ba took the opportunity to mock Yin. You can go out with Military Governor Xiao every few days. You don't have to go through daily training, and you can also gain favor in front of your superior. Even the gods are not as good as you. Brother Wang, that's not right. When brother he goes out with the governor, it will not be as easy as we think. There might be danger. Jiang Jiao looked at Yin. You must be careful. Yin stretched. I've always been careful. Seeing this, Huang Xiong twisted the prayer beads around his neck and said, Since you've always wanted to be promoted, this is a good opportunity. Military Governor Xiao is willing to take you with him because he has taken a fancy to something you have. If you can seize this opportunity and earn military merits, you will be one step closer to what you want to do. You will also be able to accomplish what you want to do faster. Yin thought that Xiao Ju was willing to take her with him because he had taken a fancy to something she had. That was because he had taken a fancy to her as a woman. You didn't expect this, did you? Well said. She waved her hand. Everyone, don't worry. We are all brothers who fought for the flag on White Moon Mountain and slept together on the same bed. As long as I have a bite to eat, you will all have a bite to drink. If I can really be promoted, I will definitely not forget my comrades. However, I also believe that even without me, you will be able to make a name for yourself in Liangzhou. Well said, Huang Xiong said. If you don't rely on others and rely on yourself, you are all heroes. Yin smiled slightly and looked at the vast sky of the Liangzhou garrison. The snow-capped mountains in the distance would gradually melt. Winter had passed, and spring would soon arrive. Jiang was different from Liangzhou. The mountains were high and the rivers were far away. Who knew what would happen in the future? She clapped her hands and stood up. The future was not something that could be imagined just by thinking about it. She just had to keep her head down and keep moving forward. End of Volume 3. Chapter 129. It would take almost a month to travel from Liangzhou to Jiang City. After the New Year's spring arrived, they traveled all the way south. The closer they got to Jiang, the warmer the weather became. By the time they were almost there, the wildflowers by the roadside had bloomed, and the swallows had started to build their nests. Spring had really arrived. Outside Jiang City, Chi Wu drove a carriage over and said, Young master, this is the best carriage you can buy in this area. The carriage looked very luxurious. It was wrapped in fine peacock green silk, and the white gauze inside swayed slightly. It was very spacious and comfortable to sit in. Ian was tired after riding for so many days. Ian was very satisfied to be able to relax. However, Lin Shuanghe was still very picky. That's it? I wouldn't even look at something like this in Shuajing. The wood is too inferior. Didn't I say to pick the most expensive one? Qi Wu said, this is already the most expensive one. Ian looked at Lin Shuanghe and sighed in his heart. After so many years, this young master style of living and enjoying life had not changed at all. Ian could not understand why Xiao Ju had to bring Lin Shuanghe along when she went to Jiang. Wasn't she dragging him down? Ian was not the only one who could not understand. Lin Shuanghe was also puzzled. Before he left, he confirmed in every possible way, are you sure you didn't say anything wrong? You want to bring me along to Jiang? Xiao Ju said, I'm sure. Why? Because we need a housekeeper. A housekeeper? Lin Shuanghe was angry. Have you seen a housekeeper as charming as me? Xiao Ju sized him up. I've seen one now. Although Lin Shuanghe said that, he also wanted to go out with Xiao Ju to see the world. He had never been to Jiang, but he heard that the girls there were all beautiful. Wouldn't it be a pity if he did not see them once in his life? Therefore, he just grumbled a little and agreed to go with them. They did not pay attention to anything else during their journey. However, now that they were about to reach Jiang City, they had to dress up properly. After all, they were no longer Xiao Huijin and He Yin. They were Hu Province's wealthy young master Qiao Huanqing and his newly married wife Wen Yuyin, as well as their guards Qi Wu and Fei Nu, and housekeeper Lin Shuanghe. Slave Fei took out the communication token and looked at the city gate of Jiang in the distance. He said, Young master, once we enter the city and find an inn to settle down, we still need to buy 2 maidservants. It's impossible for a wealthy young master and young mistress to travel without even bringing a servant girl with them. They had to take care of their own food, clothing, and daily necessities. Let alone Cui Yuji. No one would believe it. Buy maidservants? Lin Shuanghe said, I'll go too. I know how to pick girls. Xiao Ju did not bother to pay attention to him. She only instructed Fei Nu, find the younger ones. Let them go home after we're done with Jiang. Fei Nu agreed. Qi Wu and Fei Nu drove the carriage outside. The carriage slowed down and slowly arrived at the Jiang city gates. Fei Nu handed the pass to the guards at the city gates. The guards looked carefully at the black words on the pass and suddenly became respectful. So you're Cui Zhongqi's family. Please enter. Lin Shuanghe asked, is Cui Yueji's status in Jiang very high? I heard that he grew up with Princess Mengji. He's loyal and capable. The princess trusts him a lot, He Yin answered. Lin Shuanghe asked curiously, how did you know? He Yin replied, I heard it from someone. Xiao Ju glanced at her but did not say anything. He Yin had never been to Jiang, but she had heard some things about the people and things in Jiang. It was because her master, Lu Buang, came from outside Jiang City and had told her many anecdotes about Jiang. After hearing a lot, she also yearned for Jiang. However, it was troublesome to travel between the territories of the vassal kings. She did not expect that she could take advantage of Xiao Ju to come and take a look at the Shui city that Lu Buang mentioned. It was really interesting. Jiang City was a beautiful city. Thousands of households were connected, and trade was prosperous. There was a canal outside the city where merchant ships gathered. Jiang was rich in silk, satins, and tea leaves that flowed along the Yuyang River to Yangzhou. It could be said that thousands of boats sailed like the wind. There were large and small rivers in the city. Small boats could be seen under bridges everywhere. The bows of the boats were filled with fruits and small things. This was the Shui city of Jiang. The people of the Central Plains had never seen such a scene. He Yin leaned on the carriage and looked out, clicking her tongue in wonder. Lin Shuanghe sighed and said, Jiang is really like what Wanner said. It's really a fairy-like place. No wonder it's easy to get out, but hard to get in. If I came here, I wouldn't want to leave either. Look at the girls here. They're so beautiful and fresh. They're different from the girls in Shuajing City. He Yin was speechless. She thought, you didn't say that when you were in Shuajing City. She turned to look at Xiao Ju again. Xiao Ju was sitting in the carriage. He didn't seem to be interested in the bustling scene outside the carriage. He sat there lazily, and his eyes were calm, without the slightest surprise. "Commander-in-Chief, should we go find an inn first?" she asked. "What Commander-in-Chief?" Lin Shuanghe immediately said, "We're already in Jiang. You can't call me Commander-in-Chief, lest you expose yourself." Ian asked, "Then what should I call you?" "Of course you should call me husband." When the word husband came out, He Yin and Xiao Ju were shocked. Xiao Ju's expression was even more indescribable. It was very interesting. She endured it, and after a while, she flicked her sleeves and said, "You don't have to call me husband now. It would be weird to call him that in the future, okay?" He Yan's heart was pained. This task seemed good, but he didn't expect it to be so difficult to carry out. It even required him to throw away his sense of shame. No wonder the exchange condition was to join the Southern Prefecture Army. Xiao Ju said, "Let's find an inn first and settle down." Jiang was rich in resources, and it was prosperous. They didn't need to be picky when looking for an inn. Chiwu picked a place that was closest to the city center. It was convenient for him to familiarize himself with the city. They first put down the heavier things on the carriage. Fei Nu walked over and said, "Young master, I just asked around. There's a restaurant nearby. The restaurant's lady boss will help to buy and sell serving girls for the rich families. If you're staying here today, you can go to the lady boss to look for help." Xiao Ju nodded. Ian hesitated for a moment and said, "I won't go." They paused. Lin Shuana asked "Young mistress, what's the matter?" Ian didn't have any other reason. He just couldn't bear to see other people sell their sons and daughters. Even though he knew that some children might not necessarily have a bad life after entering a rich family as a servant girl, he still felt uncomfortable in his heart. When he was in the army, he was harassed by the Chong people in the war-torn lands. It was common practice for the common people to sell their sons and daughters. If it was a son, it would be better. At most, they would be sold to other people as long-term workers. Ian had seen it before. A 13 or 14-year-old girl sold to a 60-year-old man as a concubine for only a piece of sesame seed cake. Human life was so cheap. She really didn't like to see people being picked and sold like goods. I'm a woman now, right?" She casually made up an excuse. "I can't run around in this outfit. It doesn't look like Wen Yuyin. I was thinking if there's a ready-made clothing store nearby, I'll go and buy 2 pieces of women's clothing. If there's jewelry, I'll also buy some so that we won't be exposed when we meet Chui Yueji." In order to make it easier for her to travel, she still borrowed Cheng Li's clothes. Now that they were in Jiang, it was not appropriate for her to dress as a man. When Lin Shuanghe heard this, he felt that what she said was quite reasonable. He said, "That's fine too. Chi Wu, follow her." Xiao Ju said, "If there's anything, send a signal." Chi Wu acknowledged. Xiao Ju looked at He Yin again. "You stay nearby. Don't go too far. Jiang is not like Liangzhou. It's best to be cautious." He Yin nodded. "Okay, then let's split up." Lin Shuanghe waved his fan. "Young mistress, remember to buy a few more beautiful clothes. When the time comes, we'll show them how beautiful the girls in the Central Plains are." Xiao Ju said, "Shut up." The 3 of them went down the stairs of the inn and left. He Yin and Chi Wu were left alone. Chi Wu thought, Lin Shuanghe is wrong. He Yin is not a woman. No matter how he dresses up, he can't be beautiful. What's the point? Just as he thought of this, he saw He Yin looking at the mirror and pulling out the hairpin on her head. In an instant, her black hair fell to her shoulders. He Yin turned her head. "I'm a man. It'll attract attention if I go to a ready-made clothing store to buy women's clothes. Lay your hair down first. What do you think?" She asked Chi Wu. "How do I look now?" Chi Wu. It's okay." He muttered in his heart. "Why didn't I realize that He Yin actually looks like a woman? I thought that he would be difficult to look at if he dressed up as a woman. Now that this guy let his hair down, he really does look like a woman. No wonder the young master chose him to go with them." "Let's go," Chi Wu said. "Let's take a walk around the area while it's still bright." The 2 of them went out together. Jiang City was located further south than Liangzhou City, so the weather was much warmer. Now that it was spring, the sun was slightly peeking out, warming people's bodies. The willow trees emitted a soft green color, and the spring scenery was boundless. The sound of hawkers hawking their wares could be heard everywhere. The people of Jiang originally relied on fishing for a living. Their culture was warm and open, and everyone was hospitable. When they passed by a fruit vendor, he saw that He Yin was looking at a few fruits. He insisted on stuffing a few fruits into He Yan's arms and said, "Young mistress, take it. It's free. You can have a taste." Chi Wu. He was actually called young mistress. His disguise was too good. He Yin took the fruits with a smile and handed them to Chi Wu. He said, "Jiang City is really good." No wonder Lu Buwang's tone was full of nostalgia when he mentioned Jiang back then. Thinking of Lu Buwang, He Yin was a little worried. Now that she was staying with Xiao Ju, how could she find a suitable reason to go out of the city to look for Lu Buwang's traces? Moreover, Lu Buwang had said it vaguely at that time. Now, it seemed that Jiang City was so big that it was really not easy to find someone. While she was thinking, Chi Wu had already asked the stall owner who was selling clay figurines next to him, "Little brother, may I ask if there are any shops selling ready-made clothes nearby?" When the stall owner heard this, he smiled and said, "Judging from your accent, you're not from Jiang, right? You've asked the right question." He pointed in a direction and said, "Jiang's embroidery workshop is the largest ready-made clothes shop. There are the best and most clothes in there. If you want to buy clothes, you can't go wrong there." Chi Wu thanked the stall owner and walked in the direction pointed by the stall owner with He Yin. He Yin was a little nervous. Chi Wu asked, "What's wrong with you?" "I feel a little uncomfortable buying women's clothes," He Yin said. Chi Wu nodded and said, "It's quite uncomfortable." He Yin spent more time as a man than as a woman in both his previous and current lives. However, even though he was a woman, he didn't care much about dressing up. He would wear whatever the residents prepared for him. If he really wanted to pick something, he wouldn't be able to pick it out. He thought to himself that he shouldn't make a fool of himself and pick something that didn't suit him. However, no matter how afraid he was, he still had to go through this. The embroidery workshop wasn't far from here, so it didn't take long for them to arrive. The clay figurine stall owner was right. The embroidery workshop looked very big. It had a total of 5 floors, and it looked like a pavilion. When the 2 men in green standing at the door saw them coming, they smiled and went forward to welcome them. One of them said, "Sir, is this your first time in the embroidery workshop?" He nodded and said, "Yes, we want to buy a few clothes. May I ask if you or this young master wants to choose clothes?" The man pointed upstairs and said, "In our embroidery workshop, the first floor is for men's clothes, the second floor is for children's clothes, and the remaining 3 floors are for women's clothes." He paused and said, "The higher you go, the more expensive the clothes are." He smiled and rubbed his hands. "Look, let's go to the 3rd floor." He had made a prompt decision. "Okay," the man replied with a smile. "Please follow me." It was really big inside. Every floor was covered with fine carpets, and the decorations were very beautiful. Unlike the elegance of Shuo capital, Jiang's decorations were more colorful and lively, just like the people there. There were murals painted on the walls, and it seemed like everyone was having fun together. The streets on the water were very lively, and everyone was jostling shoulder to shoulder. It was very interesting. When the man saw He Yin staring at the murals without blinking, he smiled and said, "This is Jiang's Water God Festival. Jiang relies on water to make a living, and we worship the Water God every March. The 2 of you don't look like locals. If you stay here long enough, you can come and watch the Water God Festival. It's very lively." "March?" He Yin asked. "Yes, it's this month. The Water God Festival is very fun. Miss, if you go, you won't lose out." The people here were very enthusiastic, so He Yin didn't say anything. However, he was curious about the Water God Festival that the man mentioned. When they reached the 3rd floor, the man stopped and said, "This is it. Miss, please take a look first." He Yin nodded. Chi Wu was a little uncomfortable. This floor was full of women's clothes, and it didn't look good for a man like him to stay here. She said to He Yin, "I'll wait for you downstairs. When you're done choosing, just send someone to inform me." He Yin said, "Okay." After Chi Wu left, the man continued to show He Yin around. As he looked, he explained to He Yin, "This cherry-red antique satin moonlight dress has been selling the best recently. It's spring, and everyone likes to wear red. It's the most eye-catching when you go for a walk. If you want to attract your lover's attention, this is the best. This lotus-colored peony jade dress is also not bad. When paired with a round fan, you'll look like a fairy from a painting. Elegant and otherworldly, noble and elegant. It's very wonderful. Look at this. This colorful butterfly pattern dress has 100 butterflies on it. They were all sewn on by our embroiderers. Think about it. If you wear this dress among the flowers, you'll definitely attract a lot of butterflies. You'll be surrounded by real and fake butterflies. How adorable! Hien was speechless. The shop assistant of the embroidery workshop was too eloquent. Hien was moved by his words. She felt that every piece of clothing hanging on the wall was unique and exquisite. Even if it was an ordinary woman, she would be dazzling and moving when she wore it. She was the only one on this floor. If a few more people came to look at the clothes, how would the man be able to handle it? Fortunately, she had some discernment and didn't believe everything. However, she couldn't help but feel dizzy after looking at all the clothes on the third floor. There were too many, and she didn't know which one to choose. Hien thought for a while and looked at the man. Little brother, I rarely choose my own clothes, so I don't know which one to choose. Why don't you help me look for clothes that won't go wrong, won't be picky, and won't be impolite at the banquet? The man was also a shrewd person. When he heard Hien's words, he knew that Hien didn't know how to pick out clothes. He smiled and said, Sure. Miss, I see that your skin is fair, and you are different from the women of Jiang. With such outstanding looks, wouldn't it be a pity if you only choose clothes that won't go wrong and bury your beauty? Why don't? He walked in front of a piece of clothing and picked up a corner of it to show Hien. Take a look at this one. This heavenly fragrance jade dress is very light and thin. It feels very delicate to the touch. The color is aqua blue, and it suits your skin very well. The style is simple and elegant, but if you wear it to the banquet, you definitely won't be impolite. There is only one piece of this dress left. If you like it, why don't you choose this one? Hien walked in front of the dress. Compared to the previous ones, this dress looked much simpler. It wasn't as fancy, and it felt very comfortable to the touch. Hien smiled and said, Then I'll choose this one. I want this dress. A hand reached out from the side and snatched the dress from Hien's hand. Hien turned around and saw a young woman in a yellow dress standing in front of him. She had an almond-shaped face and peachy cheeks, and her beauty was like a hibiscus. However, her skin was slightly darker, and her figure was excellent. She was also quite tall. She didn't even look at Hien. It was as if Hien didn't exist in front of her. Behind her were two maidservants dressed in green. One of them said, Why are you still in a daze? Why didn't you greet our young lady when you saw her? The man was stunned. He quickly bowed and greeted, Eldest young lady Yin. The woman called Eldest young lady Yin snorted in response. The man turned around again and wiped his sweat. He said to Hien, Miss, why don't you choose another piece? Even a fool would understand what was going on. No matter where and when, there was no lack of people who relied on their family background to run rampant without fear. The man was innocent. Hien didn't want to make things difficult for him. Moreover, it was just a piece of clothing. He smiled and said, It's fine. I'll choose another one. I'm sorry. The man turned his back and said in a low voice, Eldest young lady, Yin usually doesn't come to our ready-made clothing store. Even if she comes, she won't go to the third floor. I don't know what happened today. It's fine. Yin gave him a reassuring look. There's no need to explain. I understand. Thank you. Thank you. The man walked to eldest young lady Yin and smiled. Eldest young lady Yin, do you need me to choose clothes for you? Who are you to choose for me? Eldest young lady Yin said disdainfully, Go and choose for others. I don't need your guidance. The man retreated to the side, hesitantly, and returned to Yin. Compared to the sarcastic eldest young lady Yin, this man was obviously much gentler and easier to talk to. He smiled and said, Miss, take a look at this. This Su-embroidered pipa dress is pinched at the waist. The sleeves are also very wide. When you wear it, you feel like you're walking in the clouds. It's also extremely beautiful. The color is also pear blossom white. When you wear it, you will definitely have smooth skin and jade bones. You will be seductive. Yin couldn't help but laugh when she heard that. This man was selling clothes, so be it. Why was he praising people so easily? It made her feel embarrassed. Yin looked at the dress and felt that it was not bad. She said, "Then, this one will do." As soon as she finished speaking, the maidservant beside eldest young lady, Yin reached out and pulled the dress that Yin pointed it over. She said, "Our eldest young lady wants this too." Again? Yin frowned slightly. If it was a coincidence once, it would be intentional if it happened twice. But she had never seen this woman before. Why was she targeting her? She turned around and faced the other party. She asked politely, "May I ask, miss, did I offend you in any way?" "No." Eldest young lady Yin looked at her and raised her eyebrows. "I'm just picking a dress. How did you offend me? One or two pieces are naturally fine." Yin smiled. "But don't tell me you'll choose whatever I choose later?" Eldest young lady Yin pursed her lips and said arrogantly, "It seems that you're not stupid. I don't understand. Why are you like this? You have to ask why for everything." "Very good, but I'm not your husband. Why should I answer your questions? I'm here today. Even if I buy all the clothes on the third floor, that's because I'm capable. If you're not convinced, you can buy them too. There are so many clothes. There will definitely be one that I don't want." However, she sized up Yin and said disdainfully, "Look at you. You don't look like you can afford much." Yin was wearing Chung Li's plain clothes. The material wasn't bad, but she had been on the road for days and was travel-worn. She also came from the inn and didn't have time to change her clothes. In the eyes of others, her head and face were covered in dirt, and she looked poor. What kind of luck did she have? She could even meet such an arrogant young lady when she came out to buy clothes. Yin had always been simple and violent when dealing with men. Even if she was not convinced, she would at most fight. However, women were different. She could not beat up a lady on the street. "The embroidery workshop is not owned by you." Yin said patiently, "I just want to buy some clothes. Please don't cause trouble." It would have been fine if she did not say this. Once she said this, the woman was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. All her fur stood on end. She narrowed her beautiful eyes and said in a sharper voice, "Cause trouble? You actually said that I'm causing trouble? Where did this country bumpkin come from? It's fine if you don't know me, but you're even full of filthy words. You want to buy clothes? Look at your shabby appearance. Can you afford it?" Young madam," a voice interrupted. Yin turned around. He did not know when Xiao Ju and Lin Shuanghe had found their way here. Qi Wu and Fei Nu were behind them. There were also two young ladies dressed in pink who stood timidly at the side. Xiao Ju walked forward. The Jiyang women were beautiful and bold, while the men were masculine and powerful. A handsome, elegant, and charming young man like him was really rare. "Young madam," Yin stared blankly at him. Xiao Ju stared at her for a while. Suddenly, she curled her lips and leaned close to Yan's ear. Her voice was very low, but it was just enough for the people around to hear. "What's the matter, madam?" Chapter 130. The young man was tall and straight like a pine tree. The dark blue robe on him made him look noble and elegant. His eyes were as dark as the night sky, and they were filled with coldness. However, the corners of his mouth were curled up with a hint of casual mockery. The word madam was so low and mellow that everyone present was intoxicated. Yin was the same. He only felt the place where his breath touched instantly stiffen. For a moment, he was speechless. Eldest Miss Yin bit her lip and looked at Xiao Ju. She was half stunned and half jealous. Such a handsome man was actually married, and the one he married was the country bumpkin beside him? Why? Seeing that Yin was silent, Xiao Ju raised her eyebrows and said in a gentler voice, "Did she bully you?" Yin was so shocked that he came back to his senses. Just as he was about to speak, eldest Miss Yin spoke first. She said, "Young master, I didn't bully anyone. I just took a fancy to the same clothes as this young lady." When eldest Miss Yin spoke to Xiao Ju, she was no longer as aggressive as before. She was so gentle that it was as if she was a different person. She couldn't bear to look away from Xiao Ju. "But I clearly heard you say that our young madam has no money. Lin Shuanghe wanted to see the world in chaos. He waved his fan and said, "Even I, the butler, can't stand it anymore." Butler? The servant in green, who didn't dare to make a sound, was secretly shocked. He thought that it was a young master from some family, but he didn't expect it to be a butler. Oh no, oh no. This group of people had extraordinary appearances and auras. Could it be that some important person had come to Jiang? He wondered if he had offended her just now. Xiao Ju turned and asked He Yin, "Did you choose anyone?" He Yin shook his head. Eldest Miss Yin handed over the aqua blue dress that He Yin had taken a fancy to just now. She smiled and said, "If you really like this dress, I'm willing to part with it." He Yin was speechless. Was Xiao Ju's face so useful? This change in attitude was like a completely different person. He Yin thought sourly. It's really advantageous to be good-looking. Xiao Ju only glanced at her indifferently. She did not reach out to take it. Instead, she asked the waiter, "What's upstairs?" In reply to young master, the shop assistant replied while wiping his sweat, "Our embroidery workshop has a total of 5 floors. The 3rd to the 5th floor are all women's ready-made clothes. The clothes on the 5th floor are the most expensive and are specially made for nobles. The price is also higher. Bring out the treasure of your shop." Miss Yan's face froze. He Yin was also shocked. He tugged at Xiao Ju's sleeve and whispered, "It's okay. I'll just wear it casually." He Yin felt that it was inappropriate for her to choose the most expensive one based on her family's background. Xiao Ju said calmly, "Shut up." The shop assistant of the embroidery workshop was a talented person. He only said, "Please wait a moment." He immediately went upstairs. Not long after, he came down with a small box wrapped in soft satin. He placed the box on the round table in the room. He unlocked the box and carefully took out a thin, pale white silk dress. The pattern of the dress was not complicated. It was not as flashy as the one just now. However, the sunlight shone through the window and shone on the dress. The original white color was actually refracted into a rainbow-like color. It was faintly discernible, like the scales of a mermaid. It was suffused with a faint blue-purple gold powder. It was thin and soft. It did not seem like an ordinary item. This dress is made of mermaid yarn. I dare say that this is the only one in Jiang and Dawei, not to mention the embroidery workshop. This mermaid gauze was bought from a merchant at a high price. The rest of the material was given to Her Highness, and the last bit was used to make this teardrop gauze. This was because under the sun, the dress would emit the color of a mermaid's tears. "Dear guest, this is the treasure of our shop." Xiao Ju glanced at the dress in the shop assistant's hands and said, "It's barely passable." He Yin felt that there was no need for so many fancy words. Wasn't it just a dress? What mermaid yarn? It was as if mermaids really existed in this world. It was just a gimmick. How could anyone believe it? "How much is it?" Lin Shuanghe asked. The shop assistant stretched out a finger and said, 100 gold? 100 gold? He Yin was surprised. "Why don't you just rob a bank? 100 gold for a dress." This was too extravagant. She had not been so extravagant when she was a rich young master or madam in her previous life. The shop assistant smiled and said, "Madam, don't underestimate this dress. Other than looking good, it is also a treasure. It can be used for self-defense. It is invulnerable and impervious to fire and water. 100 gold for a dress is a little expensive, but 100 gold for a treasure is already very cheap." "There's no need for that," Chi Wu whispered to Fei Nu. "Would a rich madam who can afford to wear this dress go through a mountain of swords and a sea of flames for no reason? There's really no need for that." "I'll take this one," Xiao Ju said calmly. "Pick a few other pieces. The ones on the 5th floor will do." "Okay." The shop assistant was overjoyed. It was not every day that he met such a generous customer. He decided to strike while the iron was hot and continued, "Dear guest, do you want to take a look at the jewelry in our embroidery workshop? This tear gauze should be paired with a pearl peony hairpin, a pair of exquisite white jade pendants, and shoes of the same color. Our madam's rare beauty will not be wasted." "He Yin? Question mark. Xiao Ju said, "Choose as you see fit." Eldest Miss Yin was stunned. He Yin felt that it was inappropriate. He tugged at Xiao Ju's clothes and pulled him towards him, saying, "It's too wasteful." Xiao Ju said calmly, "Let go." Ian immediately let go of her. Just as Xiao Ju had said, the shop assistant went to pick out a few pieces of clothing, a few pieces of jewelry, and brought over a small chest for everyone to look at. After counting them one by one, he closed the chest and said, "A total of 200 gold." Ian almost fainted when he heard this. Xiao Ju said to Lin Shuanghe, "Pay up." Lin Shuanghe was shocked. "Me? Do you want me to pay?" "Housekeeper." Lin Shuanghe. He could only take out a banknote from his sleeve. He forced a smile and said, "Okay, I'll pay." Just as he was about to hand the banknote over, Xiao Ju said, "Wait." Everyone paused. Ian was delighted. Why did she suddenly realize that she was too extravagant and wanted to turn back? Xiao Ju looked at Miss Yin and smiled. She said slowly, "I forgot to ask if this lady is interested in the same box of clothing. If she likes it, I'm willing to part with it." Eldest Miss Yin's expression was extremely ugly. Although her family was rich, she did not always bring 200 gold with her when she went out. Moreover, there were tailors at home who specialized in making clothes. It was difficult for her to spend 200 gold to buy things at a ready-made clothing store. This overly beautiful man was clearly standing up for his wife. She gritted her teeth and said, "Thank you for taking care of me." "I don't like it." Xiao Ju nodded and ordered Fei Nu to put away the box. Just as she was about to leave, she looked at the other party and said, "Let me give you a kind reminder." Everyone was stunned. The beautiful man's eyes were gentle, but his tone was full of sarcasm. "Your skin is too dark. The clothes from the embroidery workshop don't suit you. Go to another shop." When they reached downstairs, Lin Shuanghe was still holding his stomach and laughing nonstop. "Ha ha ha! What? Young master, your words are too harsh. Didn't you see that lady's face just now? Oh my God, if I were her, I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. She has her heart on you. It's fine if you reject her, but you still have to be so sarcastic. Oh my God, ha ha ha." Ian also felt that Xiao Ju's actions were too childish. However, this wasn't what surprised her more. She caught up with Xiao Ju in a few steps and asked, "She wanted to take the clothes I chose just now because her skin is dark and she can't wear these colors?" She knew it. It was her first time in Jiang, and she had no enmity with the other party. Why would she find trouble with her? Later, when she heard Xiao Ju say this before she left, she realized that perhaps the shop assistant had said fair skin when he was introducing the ready-made clothes to her, which made Miss Yin unhappy. There were such people in the world who would be jealous and hateful when they saw that someone else had something they didn't have. "Aren't you very good at lying? Is that all you're capable of?" Xiao Ju's expression returned to indifference. She said disdainfully, "Can't you tell that she's jealous of you? How would I know that there are things about me that make people jealous?" Ian muttered, "Especially when women are jealous of me." It was common to be envied by men. They said that he was good at fighting, could run fast, and could drink a lot. So, this was what it felt like to be envied by women. In this way, she felt that women's jealousy was very cute. It was just a little quarrel and a little trouble, unlike men who would fight for the slightest thing. Also, she asked Xiao Ju, "Am I very fair? Is that why she's jealous? Am I very fair?" She often dressed like a teenager and was already used to it. Suddenly, she saw that her long hair was spread out. Although she was still wearing a teenager's clothes, her eyes were lively and delicate. She indeed looked like a young girl. Although she looked a little silly, but Xiao Ju looked away. "You look like a piece of charcoal." Ian was speechless. Would this person die if she said something nice? Behind them, the two newly bought maidservants in pink clothes were timid and did not dare to speak. Chiwu looked at Ian, who was deliberately teasing Xiao Ju, and rubbed her arms. She could not help but say to Fei Nu, "This Ian, isn't it too fast for him to get into character? Look at him now. He's simply treating himself as a woman. I'm getting goosebumps. It's strange that he's acting like this." Fei Nu said, "See no evil, hear no evil." When they returned to the inn, the two maidservants first looked at Ian. One of them said timidly, "Madam, we'll go upstairs to tidy up your room first. Please wait for a while before coming up." Ian said, "Okay." When the two maidservants went upstairs, Hien asked, "These are the maidservants you bought? They're too young." The two maidservants looked at most 12 or 13 years old. He did not know if it was because they were that old or because they were too thin and weak, but they looked exactly the same. They were a pair of twins. Lin Shuanghe answered, "We have no choice. Our young master is too beautiful. If we find someone around your age, it's inevitable that she'll have other thoughts. What if she climbs into our young master's bed in the middle of the night? It's safe and reliable to find someone who's young and immature." When Hien heard this, he felt that Lin Shuanghe was simply a genius. What he said was very reasonable. Based on Miss Yan's reaction at the embroidery workshop, Xiao Ju's face and body were indeed enough to attract bees and butterflies. It was better to be careful. Lin Shuanghe said again, "Although these two maidservants are young, I spent a lot of money on them." "I say," he suddenly reacted and looked at Xiao Ju. "You insisted on bringing me to Jiang not because you need a butler, but because you need a money bag, right?" Hien burst out laughing. Lin Shuanghe was still bitterly reprimanding Xiao Ju's actions. "Do you know that what you're doing is very unkind? You bought clothes for your wife, maidservants, and an inn for her. Why should I spend money? It's not like they're mine." Hien could not laugh anymore. Xiao Ju said indifferently, "Why did you follow me all the way to Jiang safely?" "Because you're here," Lin Shuanghe said. "Nonsense. With Xiao Ju around, who would dare to block the road and rob them?" Xiao Ju did not deny it. "That's enough. Protection fee." Lin Shuanghe said, Protection fee?" He said, Xiao Ju gently shushed him and looked at the box outside. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Go and move the things, Butler Lin." Lin Shuanghe had never won against Xiao Ju when it came to talking. He snorted, took out a few round things from his sleeve, and stuffed them into Hien's hands. Hien was puzzled. "What are these?" "I bought rouge and powder for my wife." Lin Shuanghe's attitude towards Hien was very good. He said, "When we came to find you after buying the maidservants, we already met Chui Yueji's people. The Chui family had already arranged for the guards at the city gate. When they saw Qiao Huanqing's pass, they reported to them that we might have to stay at the Chui residence tonight. After thinking about it, you still need these." Hien stared at the rouge and powder box in his hands and frowned. This was too difficult for her. "I'm going to move the things." Lin Shuanghe waved his hand and leaned close to Hien. He whispered, "Younger sister He, dress up well. Let those blind people see how beautiful you are. I have high hopes for you. Tonight, you will be the most beautiful pearl in Jiang City." "Hien, thank you so much." A young maidservant's crisp voice came from the corridor. "Madam, young master, we have finished tidying up the room. You can come in now." Xiao Ju said, "Let's go." Hien put away the rouge and powder and walked upstairs with Xiao Ju. When they reached the door of the room, they stopped and asked hesitantly, "You're going in too?" Although they were husband and wife in name, but were they going to stay in the same room? She still had to change her clothes. That was not good. Xiao Ju looked at her as if she was looking at an idiot. After a while, she said, "I'm going to Lin Shuanghe's room. Call me when you're done." "Hien?" "Okay." She entered her room. The two maidservants retreated to the sides and looked at her with their grape-like eyes, carefully waiting for her orders. Hien could not stand the maidservants' gazes. She sat down and asked politely, "What are your names?" "My name is Chui Jiao." "My name is Hong Xiao." Hien nodded. "Good name. Chui Jiao, Hong Xiao. I'm a little hungry now. Can you go to the kitchen downstairs and help me make some snacks? I want them fresh out of the oven. Just keep an eye on them, okay?" The maidservants hurriedly nodded and said, "Okay, madam. We will go now." After Chui Jiao and Hong Xiao left, Hien breathed a sigh of relief. She was not used to being served by others. Looking at the clothes and jewelry in the box, she felt a headache coming on. After thinking about it, she decided to wash her face first and wash her deliberately thick eyebrows. Now that she was traveling with Xiao Ju, she did not deliberately darken her face to save time. She had covered her face for an entire winter in the Liang province guards, so her face was already white. There was clean hot water in the room. Hien washed her face, wiped it with a handkerchief, and sat down at the table. He did not know if it was because she was a year older, but Lady He's face was much more beautiful than a year ago. Her facial features were also more distinct. She used to be a charming little beauty, but now, the tackiness between her eyebrows had been washed away, and there was a trace of heroism and straightforwardness. Looking at her now, she was really quite attractive. She had seen too many men's clothes, so she was not used to seeing a woman's clothes. He picked up the wooden comb on the table and first combed her long hair. Her gaze fell on the pile of cosmetics that Lin Shuanghe had given her. Rouge and lipstick. How should she use it? She could not remember clearly. She had used it a few times when she was Madame He. After that, she had maidservants to serve her, so she did not need to do it herself. She really did not know where to start. She picked up the conch mayonnaise on the table. She would start with what she was familiar with. He moved her head closer to the mirror and began to seriously draw her eyebrows, one stroke at a time. She had just finished drawing one when someone knocked on the door. He opened the door with the conch mayonnaise in one hand. The moment he opened the door, he saw Xiao Ju. He stuffed the box into He Yan's hands and said impatiently, "You forgot to bring your clothes?" He slapped her head. "Yes, I almost forgot." She did not even bring the clothes that were worth 200 gold taels, so why did she put on makeup? He said to Xiao Ju, "Thank you." Xiao Ju's gaze fell on her face. She was stunned and asked in disbelief, "What are you drawing?" He said, "My eyebrows." "How's my skill?" The corners of Xiao Ju's mouth twitched. She was used to dressing as a man, so she naturally drew her eyebrows thick and thick. That was why she looked like a young man with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. Now that her long hair was loose and her face was dressed as a woman, she naturally had to draw a woman's eyebrows. He drew the difference between a man and a woman. She drew her sharp eyebrows into curved eyebrows. Curved, thick eyebrows made it look as if there was an earthworm above her eyes. Moreover, it was the kind that was very fat. Xiao Ju could not bear to watch anymore. She grabbed He Yan's arm and dragged her to the basin. She said coldly, "Wash it off." "Why?" He Yan raised her head. "I think it's quite good." Xiao Ju looked down at her and sneered. "You think it's quite good?" "Okay," He Yan said softly. "It's not very good. But so what?" She was good at what she did for men, but she was clumsy when it came to women. She did not do it overnight. "Where are the two girls?" "They went to the kitchen to prepare some food for me." He quickly washed the eyebrows that she had drawn just now and wiped them dry with a handkerchief. She was discouraged and decided to go all out. "I only know how to draw eyebrows like this. Why don't—" She opened her palm, revealing the conch shell in her palm. "You do it?" She was just joking. She did not expect Xiao Ju to look at her and reach out to take it. He was really frightened this time. Xiao Ju walked over to the window seat and saw that she was not moving. "Come here." He instinctively walked over. He said again, "Sit down." He sat down on the stool in front of her. However, she still felt that it was inconceivable. She asked, "Are you really going to draw for me?" Xiao Ju glanced at her uneasy face and pursed her lips. She said meaningfully, "Are you afraid?" "Afraid?" He immediately sat up straight. "What's there to be afraid of?" "I'm just afraid that you won't be able to draw well." "I'm just boasting." Xiao Ju sneered. "You worry too much. Sit down." It was warm in Jiang in March. The sunlight shone in through the window and secretly climbed onto the young man's face. The handsome man, who was as pure as the spring moon, gently brushed her eyebrows with his slender fingers. He felt a little uneasy. She had never thought that Xiao Ju would draw for her. She had never been so close to a man in her previous life. Even her husband, Su Zhiheng, would not do this when they were newlyweds. In the eyes of others, a man drawing for a woman would be seen as a femme fatale and indulging in beauty. However, when Xiao Ju seriously drew for her eyebrows, she was mesmerized for a moment. He immediately realized that she was mesmerized and leaned back slightly. Xiao Ju frowned. "Don't move." She was stunned. Xiao Ju's hand had already clasped the back of her head and pulled her in front of him. In an instant, the distance between them shrank even closer than before. This allowed her to see him more clearly. Xiao Ju, who had lost his sharpness and coldness, looked exceptionally gentle at this moment. His eyelashes were thick and dense, and they drooped down, covering half of his dark pupils and covering the coolness in his eyes. He sat lazily, and his facial features were peerless. His thin lips were bright red, and it was tempting to keep staring at them. She remembered a rainy night in her previous life. If she had known that it was him, if she could see and accept his gentleness and kindness, would she have softened her attitude and not been so fierce when she looked at his face? Perhaps it was because her gaze was so intense that it was impossible to ignore it. Xiao Ju's hands paused, and their eyes met. He suddenly felt guilty, as if he had been caught doing something bad. Xiao Ju frowned slightly. "Why is your face so red?" "Me?" Hien was stunned and unconsciously covered her face with her hands. She really did feel hot. She couldn't find an excuse and stammered. Xiao Ju stared at her for a while and suddenly approached her. "Don't tell me you." He raised his eyebrows, his eyes unfathomable, and smiled. Like, "No, no, no." Before he could finish, Hien immediately denied it. She even raised her hands and shouted as if she was swearing, "I really don't like you. How could I, an ordinary person, dare to have thoughts about you? I definitely don't dare to have any improper thoughts about you." "Really?" Xiao Ju leaned back, still holding the conch daisies in his hands. Seeing her hurriedly refute, he sneered and lazily said, "I didn't say anything. Why are you so agitated?" He raised his eyebrows. "Do you have a guilty conscience?" "I really didn't." Ian was anxious. What was wrong with this person? Why was she still harping on this matter? Was it fun to tease people? What kind of bad fun was this? Outside the door, two maidservants were holding plates of desserts in their hands. They didn't know whether to enter or not. "Are we going in or not?" Hong Qiao whispered. I think we shouldn't." Cui Jiao said, "I've seen a scholar read a poem. Madam and young master are currently in a passionate mood, so it's better not to disturb them." "Oh!" Hong Qiao nodded, not fully understanding. Cui Jiao thought, what was that poem called? It seemed to be, after putting on makeup, she asked her husband in a low voice, "Do you draw eyebrows?" "That's right." Chapter 131. After a while, she finally finished drawing her eyebrows. Hien snatched the conch from her hands and said, Okay, okay, you can go now." Xiao Ju raised her eyebrows. "Don't you want to look in the mirror?" "I'll look at it with you after I'm done." Hien felt that her face would continue to burn as long as this person sat there, so it was better to send him out. She pushed and shoved him out of the door. When she opened the door, she was shocked to see Cui Jiao and Hong Qiao standing outside. Hien asked, "Why are you here?" Cui Jiao was a little flustered. "We brought some snacks over and saw that young master was drawing young mistress's eyebrows, so we didn't dare to disturb you." Xiaoju didn't feel uncomfortable at all and only said, "Take your time. I'll go find housekeeper Lin." The two maids followed Yin into the room. Hong Qiao followed behind Yin and said enviously, "Young master is so good to young mistress." What? He even drew young mistress's eyebrows personally. Perhaps because they were less afraid of Yin now, the two maids became bolder. Cui Jiao said, "We've seen those loving couples, but they wouldn't go to this extent." Well, this illusion of an immortal couple was now a reality by a fluke. Yin smiled. "Do you know how to do makeup and comb hair?" This was a little difficult for her. It wasn't that she didn't know how to tie a woman's hair, but she only knew the simplest kind. She was afraid that she didn't deserve the title of wealthy madam. "We know how to do makeup. Hong Xiao is skillful, and her hair looks the best." Cui Jiao said, "What kind of hair do you want today? Do you want light makeup or bright makeup?" Yin was at a loss. "I'm going to the banquet. As long as I don't lose my manners there, it's fine." She pointed to the box that Xiao Ju had sent over. "The clothes I'm going to wear today are all in there. Just pick one for me." Cui Jiao walked to the front of the box and picked up the tear gauze. She exclaimed, "What a beautiful material! Madam, are these clothes worn by mermaids?" Yin, "Mermaids don't wear clothes." "What? Were the words mermaids written on their clothes?" Why was everyone able to see it except for her? Yin said, I'm not going to wear this today. Help me pick out something else. It was 100 gold coins at the very least. He had to wear it on the most important occasion to be able to afford this price. In any case, his body, hair, and skin were all given to him by his parents. What he looked like depended entirely on his parents. No matter how much she dressed up, that was all she could do. It was just that she had not been a woman for too long. Her heart, which had always been calm, was actually a little nervous. Hopefully, it won't be too embarrassing. In the next room, Lin Shuanghe was half leaning on the couch and drinking tea. Xiao Ju sat in front of the table, wiping the evening zither. As Lin Shuanghe watched, he remembered that when he taught He Yin how to play the zither, He Yin's poor zither skills. Xiao Ju was also an elegant person. She was good at zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. But how could He Yin, a girl, play the zither and make such an unpleasant sound? If he went to the Chui family tonight, as when He Yin would be asked to teach him a lesson. That would be fun. But with Xiao Ju around, he should be able to turn the misfortune into a blessing. You keep looking at me. Second young master Xiao was very perceptive. Is something the matter? No, nothing. Lin Shuanghe opened his fan. Why are you so suspicious? I was just thinking, how beautiful would my little sister he look if she wore women's clothes? Xiao Ju stopped wiping the zither and slowly asked, Is there something wrong with your eyes? Don't you think so? Not at all. Lin Shuanghe was unhappy. You can doubt my medical skills, but you can't doubt my taste in girls. I saw little sister he at first glance. She was definitely a beauty. She was in the Liang province guards, so she naturally dressed up in a dirty way to not let anyone discover her identity. But with those facial features, if she wore women's clothes, it would be amazing. Besides, even if you're stubborn, you still like her, don't you? Xiao Ju sneered. Which eye of yours saw that I liked her? I saw with both of my eyes. Xiao Huijin, if you really hated her, why did you have to play the hero and save the beauty in the embroidery workshop today? You couldn't stand seeing others bully little sister he, right? Lin Shuanghe sighed again. But I don't blame you. I feel that little sister, he is always a bit stupid when interacting with girls. She can't even see such obvious jealousy. Tonight, we'll be guests at the Chui family. You know how many people there are in these big families. If someone makes trouble because of this, you have to protect little sister he well. What does that have to do with me? She's your wife now, young Master Chiao. Besides, if someone from the Chui family makes trouble for little sister he, there's an 80 to 90% chance that it's because of you. With that face of yours, you could do harm to beauties, but our little sister, he is unlucky. You know that this girl isn't scheming in the ways of the world, but you're different. Take good care of her. Take good care of her. He continued to blabber on and on. After talking for an unknown amount of time, the sky was about to darken. Lin Shuanghe finished the pot of tea, stretched, and sat up from the couch. He looked out the window. It's been so long. Is my little sister he done changing? Xiao Ju had already finished wiping her zither and was leaning against the table, pretending to be asleep. Hearing this, she opened her eyes and said indifferently, Go and call someone. It was getting late, and Chui Yueji's people should be here soon. Okay. Lin Shuanghe stood up. Qi Wu and Fei Nu were guarding outside the door. Several people looked towards He Yan's room. Lin Shuanghe coughed lightly and knocked on the door. Young madam, are you done? There was a flurry of sounds from inside, and Hong Qiao anxiously said, Wait, madam, you forgot to put in the hairpin. Then Chui Jiao reminded her, Earrings. You didn't wear earrings. It was the sound of something falling, and the people outside the room were speechless. Xiao Ju slightly raised her eyebrows. Qi Wu whispered to Fei Nu, Have you ever seen a man put on makeup? It's scary just thinking about it. Fei Nu, be careful with your words. Amidst the chaos, the door opened with a creak. Chui Jiao and Hong Xiao wiped the sweat on their foreheads and said, It's done. The person behind the door walked out. It was the same face, but from a young man to a young woman. It was as if they were two different people. This was a young woman around 16 or 17 years old. She was slim and slender, and her pear-colored crescent phoenix tail dress was very tight around her waist. She wore a silk blouse of the same color. Her hair was combed into a deer bun, and there was a jade hairpin inserted diagonally. 2 strands of hair hung in front of her ears, making her ears look even more delicate. There were 2 white jade earrings dangling in front of her ears, and they were swaying. Her skin was very white, and there was a thin layer of makeup on it, making it even more delicate. Her eyes were excessively clear, and there was always a hint of a smile on her face. Her eyebrows were like crescent moons, and her beautiful eyes were bright. Her lips were a little red, and they were full of charm. The young woman's figure was petite, and she was beautiful and bright. However, there was a hint of heroic spirit between her eyebrows, which diluted her charm a little. She was really generous, valiant, and alluring. As a woman, she was slightly immature, but as a young woman, she was fresh, bright, and special. Everyone couldn't help but take a few more glances at her. The people outside the door were startled, and they didn't speak for a long time. Ian was a little uneasy. She put her hand to her lips and coughed lightly. "That is it not very suitable for me? I don't usually put on these things. It's beautiful." Lin Shuanghe was the first to applaud. "Young madam, you look like an immortal with just a little bit of makeup. When I opened the door just now, I was wondering which immortal had descended to the mortal world. When you opened the door, I realized that it was you." Tian was speechless. Lin Shuanghe's flattery skills were comparable to the little shop assistant at the embroidery workshop. He just had to close his eyes and brag blindly. He didn't care if the listener could accept it or not. She looked at Xiao Ju. This brother had to be more realistic. His words and Lin Shuanghe's words were probably the truth. Ian asked Xiao Ju, "How am I?" Xiao Ju glanced at her lightly. "Not bad." Ian felt relieved and said, "Chui, eldest uncle's family, are they here yet? If they are, let's go." "They're already waiting downstairs." Chiwu said, "The luggage is already in the carriage. Young master and young madam will stay in the Chui mansion when they're in Jiang." Xiao Huanqing and his wife, Wen Yuyan, were here to acknowledge their relatives. Since they were already in Jiang, there was no reason for them to stay in an inn. The few of them tidied up the things in the house and got off the carriage together. There were 2 carriages waiting downstairs. One was for Xiao Ju and Hien, and the other was for the butler and the servants. Chui Yuezhi seemed to treat his nephew well. He was very considerate. Hien and Xiao Ju got into the carriage and sat opposite each other. Xiao Ju was fine, but Hien felt a little uncomfortable. She pinched the corner of her clothes and fixed her hair from time to time. Xiao Ju could not bear it anymore. She looked at her and said, "Can you not move?" "Oh." Ian responded and stopped moving. Her mind was a little messy. "Nervous?" he asked. Young master." Ian leaned over and said seriously, "Let me ask you a question. Speak. Do I look like a girl? Will I be exposed at Chui Yuezhi's house later?" Ian leaned close to her. Perhaps she had just washed up, but there was a faint fragrance of a young girl coming from her body. That pair of clear eyes stared straight at her. Her face was also very small, as if it was only the size of a palm. This kind of puzzled expression, if placed on a teenager's body, perhaps would be a little rough, but when placed on this outfit, it only left a delicate and charming look. Xiao Ju looked up and said calmly, "Have you been dressing as a man for so long that your brain is damaged?" She paused. "You're a girl. I know that I'm a girl," Ian explained, "but I'm used to being a man in the Liang Province Guards. Occasionally, my actions become smooth. If there's anything wrong, you have to remind me." "Don't worry." He pulled up the corner of his mouth. "No one will think that this face is a man's." Ian said, "Then didn't you also not realize that I was a girl in Liang Province?" Xiao Ju did not pay attention to her. After a while, Ian reacted. She looked at him and said, "Did you mean that I don't look like a man at all? That I look very feminine and very beautiful?" Xiao Ju sneered. "A girl would not ask such a shameless question. Then am I a girl or not?" "No." The carriage traveled for about the time it took to burn 3 sticks of incense before it stopped. The Chui family's carriage driver said, "Young Master Qiao, Madam Qiao, we've arrived." Cui Jiao and Hong Qiao got off the carriage first and helped Yin down. Since she was a young mistress, she naturally needed people to wait on her. Yin stood in front of the Cui family's gate and sized it up. The houses in Jiang were built differently from the ones in Shuo City in the northern lands. The houses in Shuo City mostly had vermilion-painted doors, which appeared grand and dignified. Because Jiang was close to the water, the houses were mostly black and white. They were elegant and lively. The front door was carved with a picture of the water god, which gave it a different kind of life. The servants here were also dressed in gauze, looking cool and light. An old servant with grizzled hair and dressed in a jade-colored robe came forward to welcome them, smiling as he said, "This must be young Master Qiao, and this should be Madam Qiao. This old servant is the Cui family's housekeeper, Zhong Fu. Sir has entered the prince's residence today, and the princess is staying for a banquet. I'm afraid that he won't return until late at night. This old servant is under Sir's orders to help young Master and Madam settle down. Young Master and Madam should rest well tonight. Tomorrow, Sir will host a banquet and treat everyone well." "She's not here?" Yin was a little surprised, but then he sighed in relief. It was good that she was not here. He could familiarize himself with the Cui family's rules first, so that he could deal with whatever came his way in the future. Moreover, she was still not used to living with Xiao Ju as a husband and wife. It was good to have one more night to get used to it. He immediately smiled and said, "Sure." The old butler sighed in relief. Previously, when Cui Yuezhi wanted to welcome his nephew back, he deliberately inquired about Xiao Huanqing and Wen Yuyin's temperament and habits. After all, they had not seen each other for many years. He only remembered that Xiao Huanqing was a playboy and his newly married wife was arrogant and domineering. Today, he felt that the rumors were not true. This old servant will bring young Master and Madam to their room first. Zhong Fu's gaze fell on Lin Shuanghe. This young Master. He thought that he was Xiao Huanqing's friend or brother, so he was thinking about what room to arrange for him. Lin Shuanghe smiled. "What a coincidence. You and I are in the same line of work. My surname is Lin, and I am young Master Qiao's butler." "Zhong Fu, don't be discouraged." Lin Shuanghe comforted him. "Although the Central Plains is full of outstanding people, I belong to the category of people who are particularly good-looking. Not every butler can be born with a face like mine." Zhong Fu smiled awkwardly. There were 2 rooms in total not far from each other. Lin Shuanghe, Qi Wu, and Fei Nu lived in one room. Yin, Xiao Ju, and 2 servant girls lived in the other room. The 2 rooms were in the same courtyard. Each room was very large and was divided into an inner room and an outer room. The servant girls slept on the side couch behind a screen in the outer room. The inner room had a study room, tea room, and bedroom. Yin had lived in the Liang Province Guard for a long time, but even Xiao Ju's room in the Liang Province Guard was far inferior to this one. It was Cui Zhongqi's home after all. It was indeed extravagant. Zhong Fu ordered the servants to bring Lin Shuanghe and the others to the next room. He brought Xiao Ju to the main room and asked respectfully, "Young Master, what do you think of this room?" Xiao Ju looked up. "It's all right." This was called not bad, Yin thought. Xiao Ju, this rich young master, really grasped the way he did things perfectly. However, perhaps he wasn't pretending. After all, second young Master Xiao was also really fastidious in the past. After seeing good things, looking at these again, naturally they were ordinary. Zhong Fu could not hide his surprise. His master had hoped that this nephew of his could return to his hometown and stay in Jiang in the future. However, he knew that Xiao Huanqing's family was now extremely wealthy and was afraid that he would look down on Jiang. So, he renovated this room half a month in advance and moved in many treasures and antiques. This was to make Xiao Huanqing's eyes light up and feel that the Cui family was not inferior to the Qiao family. But now, it seemed that the young master did not care about these things. He did not give up and continued. "There is ambergris in the incense burner. If you like it, you can leave first." Xiao Ju said lightly, "Prepare some food and send it over. My wife may be hungry and needs to wash up and eat. If there's anything, I'll call you. Yin was shocked when he heard the word wife, but after hearing it, he really did feel hungry. After all, he did not eat much today. Zhong Fu saw this and quickly left. He made a mental note. Young Master Qiao was arrogant and not easy to please. However, he was very considerate towards his wife. If he wanted them to stay, he had to start with his wife. After Zhong Fu left, Yin asked Cui Jiao and Hong Xiao to fetch some water. She had already bathed when she changed clothes at the inn today. Xiao Ju had not yet done so. Young master, you can go take a bath first. When the food is served, we can eat together. Yin lay on the bed and rubbed his shoulders. I'm exhausted after sitting in the carriage for a whole day. Xiao Ju saw her like this, and the corner of her mouth twitched. Madam Qiao, you should sit properly. Yin immediately sat up straight. He went to take a bath behind the screen in the tea room. Cui Jiao and Hong Xiao were chased out. The two girls did not know what to do and looked at Yin. Young master doesn't want us to serve him. Xiao Ju was the same as Yin. When she bathed and changed clothes, she really did not like to be around. Yin waved his hand and said, "It's fine. He's just shy. I'll go. You must be hungry. Fei Nu and the others are just next door. You can go find them to eat." After eating, go rest on the bed in the outer room for a while. But Hong Xiao hesitantly said, "Madam doesn't need us to serve her." Yin waved his hand. "There's no need. We like to do things for each other as husband and wife. You can go and have fun." After all, they were still two young girls. When they heard Yin's words, they became happy. They thanked Yin with blushing faces and happily went to find Fei Nu and the others. In an instant, only the two of them were left in the room. Yin stood up from the bed and walked around the room to look around. Just now, he only looked at the outer room and hurriedly glanced around the inner room. Now that he looked carefully, he realized that the decorations inside were quite exquisite. On the cabinet, there were red orioles and fragrant flowers. On the table, there were the four treasures of the study. In front of the small table, there was a chessboard. On the shelf, there was a pile of travel books. Under the tree by the window, there was a small pond with a few colorful fish swimming leisurely. At this moment, the sun was setting. Looking out of the window, it was really elegant and boundless. The people of Jiang were warm and unrestrained. The decorations were also like this. This kind of renovation must have been done specially for Qiao Huanqing. Yin sighed in his heart. Cui Yuezhi was really sincere to this nephew of his. Unfortunately, the real Qiao Huanqing was a coward and did not particularly want to meet this uncle of his. She closed the window and turned around to light the oil lamp. The lamp holder was in the shape of mandarin ducks playing in water. There was also a beauty lantern in front of the small table, illuminating the room. When he heard that Xiao Huanqing and Wen Yuyin had been married for less than 3 months, they could be considered newlyweds. Cui Yuezhi was so considerate that he even had people decorate the bed meticulously. The red curtains were warm, and the red silk bedding was embroidered with a picture of hundreds of children and thousands of grandchildren. Even the candles were red. There were dried longan fruits in the fruit bowl at the side. Yin looked around and felt that this bedroom was really decorated like a bridal chamber. If she were to find a red veil to cover her head and find a few people to join in the fun to shout a few words, it would undoubtedly be the wedding day. She and Xiao Ju were going to sleep in a place like this tonight? She did not think of this at first, but now that she thought of it again, she felt uncomfortable all over. The light slowly climbed up the wall. Yin saw that there seemed to be some kind of picture on the wall at the head of the bed. This place was near the water, and there were often murals of the people of Jiang worshipping the water god. It was very lively and interesting. Yin also thought that this was what the painting was like. She kicked off her shoes, picked up the beauty lantern, and climbed to the head of the bed. She held the lantern and looked at it carefully. After Xiao Ju took a bath, she put on her inner clothes and underwear and walked out. The moment she walked out, she saw Yin holding the lantern and looking carefully at the wall. The mural? It was as if she was studying a treasure map. Her face was serious and serious. He paused for a moment and stared at her for a while. Yin did not react. She was so engrossed that she did not notice his arrival. He was silent for a moment and walked over. He walked to Hiyen's side and bent down to look in the direction she was looking at. Hiyen was lost in her thoughts when she suddenly heard a calm voice behind her. "What are you looking at?" Cough, cough, cough. She was shocked and almost choked to death on her own saliva. At the same time, Xiaoju also saw clearly what was painted on the wall. Little people who were honest with each other and in all kinds of strange poses. His face turned cold and he said angrily, "Yin." "Yes, yes, yes." Hiyen was so frightened that he trembled. "What are you looking at?" This was supposed to be a question, but Hiyen heard it as a question. He thought that Xiaoju didn't know what it was, so he answered timidly, Chun too? You haven't seen it before?" Xiaoju's face turned ugly, and she was almost angry. "I'm not asking you." Ever since Hiyen was reborn, he had interacted with Xiaoju for so long. It wasn't that he hadn't seen Xiaoju angry before, but when he was angry, he was also cold and indifferent. It was the first time Xiaoju had directly released his anger like today. But why was he so angry? Was it because she did not call him when she was looking at the painting? I saw you bathing in there by chance. If you want to look at it first, then look at it first. Don't be angry. There's nothing good about this painting. The strokes are too strong and the characters are too ugly. If you like, there are many more paintings that are more beautiful than this. Hiyen replied timidly, "I'll find them for you." Xiaoju was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He sneered, "Really? You've seen a lot of them?" Not a lot," Hiyen said. "Maybe more than you?" In his previous life, when he was Hirufei, many of his brothers in the tent secretly hid such treasure paintings. When they were bored at night, they would take them out and share them with everyone. Hiyen was also forced to look at many of them. At first, she was ashamed and angry. Later, she became numb to it. In the end, she could comment on it without batting an eyelid. It had only been a few years. She was so proud of such unsightly words. She really did not know what was good for her. Xiaoju sneered in his heart. He suddenly pushed her against the wall and placed one hand on her side. The man's body was on top of her, and she could smell the familiar scent of the moonchilin. His gaze was as sharp as lightning, and there was a hint of frivolity at the corners of his eyes. His voice was hoarse and deep, and his dark eyes stared straight at her as he said lightly, "Then do you want to give it a try?" Chapter 132. Then do you want to try? The distance between them was a little too close. Ian was startled at first, then stunned. When he crashed into the limpid autumn water, he felt his cheeks quickly become hot. He wanted to retreat, but his shoulders were restrained and he couldn't move. He could only raise his head from his arms and refuse stutteringly. "Try what?" "You've seen so much. Don't you want to try?" He raised his eyebrows and leaned closer. His gaze fell on her lips, startling Yin. The man's facial features were more refined and heroic than when he was young, with a kind of cold indulgence. This kind of person, when he was calm and indifferent, was like a flower on a high mountain. When he lazily curved his lips and even his gaze became hot, it was irresistible. Yin said, "I don't want to—" "Oh." He curved his lips and his tone became more dangerous. "If you don't try, how will you know how it is?" "This? You don't have to try," Yin explained clumsily. "Actually, you'll understand after seeing more. It's the same thing. It's just that the details are different, and some of them are not suitable for ordinary people. They're all drawn for fun. There's really no need to try. Just read." "Xiaoju fun?" Yin. "Some people might be thirsty for knowledge." Xiaoju's eyes became cold, and his smile became more playful. He said lightly, "Since you're so experienced, then you must try." He was getting closer and closer, forcing Yin to retreat to the head of the bed. He tilted his head slightly and leaned over. His thin lips were about to fall on Yin's lips. Yin screamed, "Husband!" This scream of husband was so loud that it shocked Xiaoju. After a moment, he stopped and was only a little away from Yin. He raised his eyebrows. "What are you doing?" "I'm still an unmarried girl." He pleaded softly. I'll get married in the future. It's not good for us to be like this. What's wrong with that? Xiao Ju said calmly. You and I have already seen the picture together. Looking at the picture is one thing, but actually doing it is another. He begged, Governor, please spare me this time. I will never dare to ask you to look at the map with me again. She thought that Xiao Ju's thoughts were really hard to fathom. Wasn't it just looking at a picture and he wanted to make it real? Who would dare to look at pictures with him in the future? Something was going to happen. Xiao Ju looked at her with a faint smile. Are you scared now? I'm scared. He was very sensible. I promise I won't ask the commander-in-chief to look at the map in the future. You mean, he said unhurriedly, you'll look for someone else? I won't look for others either. He immediately said, I won't look for myself either, really. She stared at him with her grape-like eyes, clear and bright, as if she was a student caught red-handed by her teacher. Xiao Ju suddenly felt a little puzzled. He felt that his actions were very strange. He could look at whatever she wanted. What did it have to do with him? Just because she called him father, did he have to worry about everything, no matter how big or small, like raising a daughter? But then again, how did her father raise his daughter? How could he raise such a strange person who did not know what shame was? He suddenly released He-Yan's hand and glanced at the painting on the wall. It was difficult for Cui Yuji to be so meticulous. He even thought of the interesting things that happened last night for his nephew. However, there was really no use for it. He casually pulled the satin cloth from the small table and covered the picture on the wall. Then he inserted 2 silver needles into the wall and firmly nailed the satin cloth. At this point, He-Yan finally understood. It turned out that Xiao Ju hated looking at this painting. Thinking about it, second young Master Zhao's eyes were as pure as ice and pure as jade. This kind of filthy painting would definitely dirty his eyes. She was really particular. After he finished all this, he got up and walked to the side of the room. He found a mattress from the short yellow wooden cabinet and laid it on the soft bed in front of the window. The soft bed was for guests to sit in front of the window and enjoy the beautiful scenery outside while eating snacks and tea. He saw this and was stunned for a moment. He asked, Commander-in-Chief, are you sleeping here tonight? Otherwise? He hesitated. Actually, you can sleep on the bed with me. Xiao Ju stopped arranging the mattress and looked at him. He said coldly, I think you are very brave. No, I know what you are worried about. He said, we only need 2 mattresses. When I was in Liangzhou, I also slept in a large shared bed. It was not a big deal for more than 10 people to sleep in one bed. Moreover, I believe in your character. You will not tarnish my reputation. Xiao Ju sneered. But I don't believe in your character. I am afraid that you will tarnish my reputation. She did not know how to respond. She saw Xiao Ju lay down after arranging the mattress. She thought for a moment, blew out the lamp, and lay down as well. In the room, only the moonlight outside the window shone on the floor in front of the table. It was covered with a layer of silver frost. When they were young in the Xianchang mansion, the 2 of them slept in the same room. They were quite far apart. He slept alone in the same room because Yuan Liang had specially informed Shirbao. Now that he was sleeping in the same room as Xiao Ju, he felt a little like he did in the past. She lay flat. The mattress under her was soft and warm. He asked, are you asleep? Xiao Ju did not answer. He continued, I don't think so. They are? Young master, let's talk. Xiao Ju still ignored her. Why did we come to Jiang? She only knew that they came to Jiang to accompany Xiao Ju. However, she did not know what they were going to do. In the dark night, Xiao Ju's voice sounded. We are looking for someone. He was stunned. He did not expect Xiao Ju to answer. He asked, who are you looking for? Qianxi. Who is Qianxi? The room was silent for a moment. Then Xiao Ju said, he is my father's subordinate. Xiao Zhongwu's subordinate? He was stunned. During the Battle of Mingshui, Xiao Zhongwu's most trusted subordinates died in battle. Since Xiao Ju said that he was a subordinate, it sounded like he was a very trusted person. Could this person still be alive and in Jiang? Jiang was the territory of the vassals. There were very few people from the Central Plains who came here. Even if there were, they would just pass by and would not stay for long. Qianqi looked like he was hiding from someone in Jiang. Could it be that he was hiding from Xiaoju? However, why would he hide from Xiaoju? Xiaoju was Xiao Zhongwu's son. He should be loyal to him. Perhaps a general's mind was especially sensitive in this aspect. He immediately thought of something. Could it be that there was something wrong with Xiao Zhongwu's death during the battle? After all, Xiao Zhongwu's defeat during the Battle of Mingshui was too tragic. Everyone said that he was headstrong and self-opinionated. However, based on Xiao Zhongwu's past achievements, he was not a headstrong person. Perhaps Xiaoju came here because of what happened back then. The person who knew about it was no longer around. However, Qianqi was still alive. It was indeed suspicious. He thought for a moment and said, "We will definitely find this person." In the dark night, he seemed to hear Xiaoju chuckle. He asked, "Why did you come to Jiang?" "Me?" He was puzzled. "Didn't you ask me to come?" Xiaoju snorted and said, "Even if I didn't ask you to come, you would still find a way to follow me, wouldn't you?" Hian's heart skipped a beat. This person was too sensitive. She indeed had an ulterior motive. She still hoped to find Lu Buwang in Jiang. However, she would not say this to Xiaoju. "You're too suspicious." Hian made up a story. "This time, I came purely for you. As long as you need me, I will not hesitate to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire." Xiaoju was silent for a moment and said, "Flattery." Hian said, "What else can you say other than flattery?" "Big words." "What else?" "Falling from the sky." "What else?" "Deceiving the heavens and concealing the earth." Hian was speechless. She said, "Young master, do you know that you are really childish now?" Xiaoju said, "Sleep." He no longer paid attention to her. The spring night was still chilly. For some reason, Hian did not feel cold, perhaps because there was someone by his side tonight. He happily got into bed. The bed was warm, and he fell asleep in an instant. The next day, when Hian woke up, Xiaoju was no longer in the room. She was stunned for a moment. She guessed that the sky had just brightened, but Xiaoju had actually woken up earlier than her. Hian stood up, hurriedly washed up, and put on an outer robe. At a glance, he saw Xiaoju sitting on the stone bench in the courtyard. A dirty wild cat was lying on the stone table in front of him, and it was eating the food in his hand. Hian walked closer and saw that he had taken a plate of pastries from somewhere. He was pinching them into small pieces and feeding them to the wild cat in front of him. When the wild cat saw that someone had come, all of its fur stood up. It did not know which pond it had rolled in, but its fur was stained with dirty water, and it had congealed into small pieces. "Why is there a cat here?" Hian asked. He wanted to touch it, but the cat immediately bared its teeth. Hian retracted his hand and said, "It's quite fierce." Xiaoju glanced at her and said, "I picked it up." The young man's fingers were long and slender, and he was very patient as he broke the pastries into small pieces. The cat was probably very good at judging people's looks. It was very gentle toward Xiaoju, and it was eating while softly calling out Mimi. Needless to say, it was quite beautiful. Hian could not help but ask, "Young master, don't you love cleanliness the most?" Phew, when he was with her, he despised her in every way and even pulled up his sleeves to wipe the dust off. Why, when he was with a dirty wild cat, he became generous. "It depends on the situation," Xiaoju said slowly. Hian thought to himself, what did he mean by depending on the situation? Did he mean that she was worse than a cat? As he was thinking, Xiaoju finished feeding the cat the last piece. She patted the cat's head, and the cat was smart. It arched its body, jumped up the wall, and disappeared in a flash. Hian stared blankly. At this time, Cui Jiao's voice sounded from outside. "Young master, young mistress, the kitchen has sent breakfast." Hian felt hungry and said, "Let's go and eat something." Xiaoju washed her hands and followed Hian into the house. She saw Lin Shuanghe take out the silver needles from the food and said, "Eat it. I've tested it. It's not poisonous." After saying that, he whispered angrily, "The difference between people is too big. Why can't we eat as much?" He was now housekeeper Lin, but he could not eat with Xiao Ju and He Yin. He had to eat with Chi Wu and Fei Nu. He could not even taste it in case someone found out. Xiao Ju said, "Scram." Lin Shuanga scrammed and left. Hong Qiao stood behind He Yin. He Yin waved his hand and said, "Go and eat with Chi Wu and the others." "Young master, and I don't like to be served." "I'll do it." Cui Jiao and Hong Qiao were stunned. They looked at Xiao Ju. Seeing that Xiao Ju did not say anything, Cui Jiao said, "This servant understands." She pulled Hong Qiao and left. When they reached the door, Hong Qiao asked hesitantly, "Cui Jiao, is it good for us to leave like this? Young mistress and young master don't usually want us to serve them. Are they not satisfied with us?" "That's not it." Cui Jiao was clever and said, "Perhaps they are from the capital and are different from Jiang. Moreover, I heard that young mistress and young master are newly married. They probably want to serve young master personally. This is called fun." At this moment, young mistress, who was supposed to personally serve young master, was eating a plum blossom bun with relish. The last time he ate so well was when he pretended to be his nephew and accompanied Xiao Ju to Liangzhou City. However, at that time, the food was only the specialty of the inn. This time it was different. Cui Yuji's status in Jiang was not low. Moreover, he was his nephew whom he had not seen for a long time. Therefore, he treated him with extra care. It was early in the morning. Look at the food on the table. There were assorted grilled meat, shisher milk, pheasant slices soup, fish maw stewed with ham, bird's nest shredded chicken soup. "This morning's food is too oily," He Yin said as he took a bite of the 8-treasure wild duck. Xiao Ju endured it and finally could not help but say, "Did I not feed you enough?" He Yin's mouth was full. "Ah!" He looked away in disgust. "Do you have to eat like a reincarnated hungry ghost? But don't you think it's delicious?" He Yin swallowed the food in his mouth. Xiao Ju said mockingly, "Is that all you have? You're a young master and a commander-in-chief. You live like a prince. Of course, you've seen the world and don't think it's a big deal. We're soldiers. It's good enough that we can eat until we're full. How can you not say that it's good?" He Yin muttered, "You're a well-fed man, and you don't know the suffering of a hungry man." He choked and gave up on reasoning with He Yin. He said lazily, "Whatever." He Yin looked at Xiao Ju as he ate. He was amazed by his elegant table manners. Logically speaking, people like them who had been in the military camp for many years did not care about such etiquette. It did not matter if they were young masters or young masters in the past. When He Yin was eldest young master, he did pay attention to his manners. However, when he was in a real battle, he could finish a biscuit in 2 or 3 bites and then get up to work. Who would care about his manners? He Yin did not believe that Xiao Ju had never behaved like that before. However, after going through such a difficult time, he was able to return to being the second young master of the Xiao family. This was not something an ordinary person could do. At least, she had long forgotten how to be a young master. After the meal, Cui Jiao and Hong Qiao came over to help He Yin dress up. Cui Yuji was going to hold a banquet in his residence at noon. He had also invited many famous nobles in Jiang City. The purpose of this banquet was to make Xiao Ju proud. Therefore, he could not be careless. Xiao Ju went out to look for Lin Shuanghe. He Yin sat in front of the dressing mirror. Hong Qiao took out the mermaid gauze from the box and asked He Yin, "Madam, do you want to wear this today?" He Yin thought for a moment. There were many people coming today. It would be safer to wear the most expensive one. He nodded and said, "Okay." The 2 maidservants began to get busy. He Yin was usually the most impatient to do these kinds of things. Sometimes he even felt that doing such delicate work for a woman was more tiring than doing it for a man. Just combing her hair, putting on makeup, choosing jewelry and shoes, and even tucking her hair in to make it look cute was not an easy task. As she combed her hair, she fell asleep. He Yin was woken up by Hong Qiao. Hong Qiao said, "Madam." He Yin opened his eyes and asked in a daze, "Done?" "Done." Cui Jiao smiled at the side. Her eyes were filled with amazement. "Madam, you look really good." He Yin said, "Thank you." She raised her head to look at herself in the mirror and was stunned for a moment. Her previous female clothing was still elegant and simple. However, this mermaid gauze could be considered charming and gorgeous. Cui Jiao and Hong Qiao must have put in a lot of effort today. They did not even dare to make a mistake in their makeup. Hien looked at her unfamiliar self in the mirror and was slightly absent-minded. This time, she did not even look like the real Lady He. Cui Jiao smiled and pushed the door open, saying, "Young master is next door. This servant will call young master over to take a look." Hien said, "No." Before he could finish the word must, Cui Jiao left happily. Hien stood up and suddenly hesitated. She was still thinking about how to face Xiao Ju in a more natural manner when she heard a casual voice behind her. "Done?" Hien looked back. The young girl was thinking about something. Her clear eyes were a little confused, and her expression was a little hazy. She was originally beautiful and delicate. Originally, the heroic spirit between her eyebrows was deliberately covered by makeup, making her appear pure and moving. Her face was charming, and her black hair was simply tied up, obediently hanging on her shoulders. Her body looked very thin and petite. Her pale white silk embroidered dress made her look even more graceful. The dress had a very faint hidden flower. When the sun shone through, it looked like the scales of a mermaid, glowing with a faint blue-purple gold powder. Her entire being was enveloped in a layer of magnificent colors, as if she was a legendary mermaid who had just climbed onto the shore and had just arrived in the mortal world. Xiao Ju's gaze paused. Lin Shuang's voice came from behind. "I want to see what a dress that costs 100 gold coins looks like. Let me see. Let me see." His noise suddenly disappeared when he saw Hien. Only amazement remained in his eyes. Qi Wu and Fei Nu, who had followed closely behind, also saw. Fei Nu was fine, but Qi Wu seemed to have suffered a huge blow. This person can actually be so beautiful when dressed as a woman? They couldn't tell that he was a man at all. It was too scary. Hien was at a loss as to what to do. He felt like he had become a monkey on the stage for everyone to admire. He grabbed the corner of his clothes and said pitifully, "Isn't this a little too much? Wasn't it just attending a banquet? Was there a need to dress up like this? Wasn't it too grand?" It would have been better if she didn't make this expression. Once she did this, her eyebrows seemed to frown, and she suddenly looked delicate and pitiful. Xiao Ju said indescribably, "Don't talk with this expression." But, Lin Shuanghe became excited. "This is great, it's just right. This dress that costs 100 gold coins is indeed a dress that costs 100 gold coins. It's really extraordinary. This money was well spent." Cui Jiao was happy. "Isn't that right, madam? This servant said that it's really beautiful." When Hien was a man, he was often praised as mighty, brave, and boundlessly handsome. He had never experienced being praised for his looks as a woman, so he was a bit shy. For a moment, he didn't know how to respond, so he cupped his fists and said loudly, "You flatter me." Xiao Ju, Lin Shuanghe. The rest of the people, Lin Shuanghe said, "It's beautiful, but madam, sometimes you don't have to be so forthright." Xiao Ju sneered, "You should speak with that expression just now. Otherwise, I might forget that you're actually a woman." Hien, all right, he forgot himself for a moment. At noon, the entire Cui residence became lively. Carriages continuously stopped at the entrance of the Cui residence. Madams, young misses, young masters, and old masters all entered the residence. Jiang was a territory belonging to a vassal. The current princess, Mu Hongjin, grew up together with Cui Yuji. Cui Yuji was Mu Hongjin's confidant and was also the first lieutenant of Jiang. Everyone had to give him face. When they heard that Cui Yuji had found his long-lost nephew, they specially prepared a banquet for his return. Everyone wanted to take a look. The Cui residence was huge. There was a lake at the back of the residence. Jiang had a lot of water, and the water was gentle. In the middle of the lake, there was a long pavilion in the middle of the lake. Today's banquet was held in the pavilion in the middle of the lake. In the pavilion, the servants had already prepared a few long and short tables. The banquet on the tables was also very sumptuous. Some of the distinguished guests had already taken their seats. Chui Yuji, the master of the residence, had yet to leave the residence. He didn't have a wife and only had 4 concubines. Therefore, the only one who helped to greet the guests was the old housekeeper, Zhong Fu. Next to a woman on the right side of the pavilion sat a young girl dressed in pink. This young girl was delicate and charming. Her skin was slightly darker, so she had put on more makeup. This made her look less barbaric and more melancholy. She frowned impatiently and asked, "It's already so late. Why aren't young Master Qiao and his wife here yet? What's the hurry?" The woman next to her, who was probably her mother, smiled and comforted her. "The banquet hasn't started yet. Moreover, Lord Chui hasn't arrived yet. How can young Master Qiao show himself first? Minner, are you hungry?" Yin Min-er, who was the young girl dressed in pink, frowned and said, "I'm not hungry. It's natural for us to wait for Chui Zhongqi. However, I heard that Chui Zhongqi's nephew was adopted by a merchant after he left Jiang City. Now, he's just a merchant. How can a merchant who stinks of money be worthy of our bitter weight? Does he really think he's a big shot?" After all, the noble families in Jiang all knew that Xiao Huanqing was a merchant. Although they came to the banquet today because of Chui Yuezhi, they didn't think highly of Xiao Huanqing in private. They just wouldn't say it out loud like Yin Min-er. "Shoo." Madame Yin hurriedly covered her mouth. "Don't talk nonsense. No matter what, he's still Lord Chui's nephew. I think he's spoiling you too much. That's why you're so lawless. Didn't you see that Lord Chui set up a banquet today to welcome young Master Qiao? Do you think Lord Chui will be happy if you say that young Master Qiao is bad?" "So what?" Yin Min-er said disdainfully. "Lord Chui and my father are friends. He won't blame me." "Oh, you." Madame Yin wanted to stop her beloved daughter from speaking without thinking, but she couldn't bear to really scold her. Yin Min-er's beautiful eyes turned. She thought for a while and said disapprovingly, "I think that maybe he hasn't seen such a big event before. He's hiding somewhere and doesn't dare to come out. He's waiting for Chui Zhongqi to help lead the way." Chapter 133. Yin Min-er and Madame Yan's conversation was overheard by a lady dressed in green. This lady was slightly younger than Yin Min-er and was more beautiful and slender. She asked, "I heard that young Master Qiao's wife is a famous talented lady in Hu province. Is she pretty?" Yin Min-er smiled and said ambiguously, "Even if she's a famous talented lady, she can't compare to Jiang's Xiao. Ling Xiao was the beloved daughter of Ling Diani from the Imperial Residence's record office. She could compose poems at the age of 5 and was famous in Jiang at the age of 7. She was proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She was delicate and beautiful. She was outstanding in Jiang City where most women were beautiful and bold. When she heard that there was another talented lady from Hu province, she wanted to compete with her. When another lady heard this, she covered her mouth and sneered. "Xiao, you don't have to compare yourself to a merchant's wife. You don't have to lower yourself. Maybe the title of a talented lady is just a lie. You're just putting on a golden coat for yourself." Ling Xiao laughed too. "If young Master Qiao really stays in Jiang, he won't be a merchant in the future. A merchant is a merchant. The stench of money is in his bones. It's not something that can be covered by a change of clothes." Yin Min-er's tone was scornful. "He's not elegant after all." The ladies laughed together. At this moment, someone said, "Chui Zhongqi is here." Everyone looked up and saw a middle-aged man walking over from the end of the pavilion by the lake. This man was round and had a broad body. He looked simple and honest, and his smile was amiable, like the Maitreya Buddha. He wore a black martial attire and was in high spirits. When he reached the entrance of the pavilion, he handed the long spear in his hand to his subordinate and said with a smile, "Everyone is here." Everyone quickly stood up and greeted Chui Yuezhi. In Jiang, Chui Yuezhi was second only to one person. Therefore, everyone in the imperial residence had to give him face. Chui Yuezhi turned around and asked Zhong Fu, "Are Huanqing and the rest here? I've sent someone to invite them." Zhong Fu smiled. "They should be here soon. Yesterday, Chui Yuezhi had a discussion with the princess in the imperial residence. He accidentally drank a few cups and stayed in the imperial residence. This morning, he had a quarrel with the group of stubborn old men. He had not seen his nephew until now. He touched his chin and said, "I wonder how my nephew looks like? Does he look like Big Brother? How similar are you to me?" Zhong Fu wanted to say something but stopped himself. To be honest, apart from his gender, that young Master Qiao had nothing in common with the Chui family. I heard that the child was raised in a merchant's family. Chui Yuezhi was a little worried. Although I don't mind these things, the nobles in the city value status the most. I just hope that they don't belittle themselves. Zhong Fu still wanted to say something, but at the end of the pavilion, a servant of the Chui family came over and said, "Young Master Qiao, Madam Qiao has arrived." Everyone subconsciously looked up. At the end of the pavilion, beside the lake, two people walked side by side. It was a man and a woman. Both of them were very young. The man was very tall, and his body was as straight as jade. He wore a dark green embroidered robe with black and gold pythons. He was very elegant. His fine black hair was tied up with a green jade hairpin. His eyes were exquisite and bright. The woman standing beside him had a bright smile on her face. She was bright and adorable. It was unknown what material her clothes were made of. At first, it looked like an ordinary plain white, but as she walked, it glowed with shades of blue, purple, and gold. It was dreamy and very moving. The two of them were both outstanding in appearance and bearing, and they were strangely compatible. When they stood together, it was an indescribable feeling of being a perfect match. For a moment, everyone in the pavilion was stunned. Was this a merchant who was reeking of money? Could a merchant have such extraordinary charm? Chui Yuezhi was also stunned. Was this his elder brother's son? His elder brother's appearance was 70% similar to his. Not to mention handsome, just the word slender was difficult to achieve. This was a little too good-looking. Yin Min was stunned. Suddenly, her face became extremely ugly. She knew these two people. This woman was the one who embarrassed her in the embroidery workshop that day. This man was the one who mocked her for her dark skin. After she returned to the residence, she couldn't take it lying down. She didn't expect that these two people were the nephew and niece-in-law that Chui Yuezhi found. She was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. At the side, Ling Xiu's gaze fell on Xiao Ju. She was a little dazed. She only muttered, "There's actually such a good-looking man in this world." Jiang was different from Shuajing. The female lead was beautiful and bold, while the male lead was masculine and brave. It was probably because things were rare that was precious. Just like how a talented woman like Ling Xiu was highly sought after in Jiang, a handsome, noble, and elegant man like Xiao Ju was really rare. All the unmarried women at the banquet stared at him like wolves staring at meat. He had also noticed these covetous gazes. He secretly cursed in his heart. Xiao Ju's face really attracted bees and butterflies wherever he went. Lin Shuanga followed behind the two of them. At first, everyone thought that he was Xiao Ju's relative or friend. When they found out that he was the housekeeper, they were also shocked. They probably didn't expect that the conditions to be a housekeeper in Huzhou would be so harsh. Chui Yuezhi arranged for Xiao Ju, and he in to sit on the right side of his long seat. Huanqing, Chui Yuezhi looked at him with a smile. "I really didn't expect you to be so good-looking." He really made the Chui family proud. In Jiang City, no one was more outstanding than the young man in front of him. When Chui Yuezhi was young, he was ridiculed behind his back for being a round ball. He was vulgar and fat. Before Qiao Huanqing returned, he heard rumors in Jiang City and was waiting to see another little fat ball. Who knew? He really made them proud. The Chui family wiped away their shame. Good. Xiao Ju nodded calmly. Chui Yuezhi's gaze fell on He Yin again. He smiled and said, "Niece-in-law looks young too. How old are you this year?" He Yin said, "Almost 17. 17 is good." The more Chui Yuezhi looked at He Yin, the more satisfied he was. His nephew and niece-in-law were both good-looking. Their children in the future would be even more good-looking. The Chui family's bloodline would definitely be stronger with each generation. When he thought of this, he felt very gratified. He even wanted to go to the ancestral hall and burn 2 sticks of incense for his elder brother. Today's banquet in the middle of the lake is specially held to welcome the two of you. Cui Yuezhi smiled and said, "Do you think it's all right?" Xiao Ju said, "It's very good. Thank you, uncle." The word uncle immediately pleased Cui Yuezhi. He smiled so widely that his face was about to burst. He said to the crowd, "As you can see, this is the only son of my deceased elder brother. He's my nephew." The guests immediately raised their cups and complimented Cui Yuezhi with things like extraordinary appearance and profound elegance. They also congratulated Cui Yuezhi for reuniting with his family, and so on. Cui Yuezhi was even happier. He ordered the servants to serve the dishes, and the banquet began. There was no custom in Jiang for men and women to sit at separate tables. The long tables were arranged according to their gender. Cui Yuezhi asked Xiao Ju in detail about the past few years. As they talked, the topic shifted to Hien. "I heard that my nephew and niece-in-law just got married not long ago." "We got married in October last year in Hu District," Xiao Ju said calmly. "Less than half a year ago." Cui Yuezhi replied with a no. He said regretfully, "It's a pity that I didn't see it with my own eyes." He patted Xiao Ju's shoulder. "If I could see you get married with my own eyes, I would die without regrets." "What does your family do?" Cui Yuezhi asked. "Hu District is too far from Jiang. It's not easy to find out about many things." Hien answered according to what he had said before. "I'm only from an ordinary family." "Thank you for thinking so highly of me, young master." An ordinary family? Everyone had different expressions on their faces. This was a commoner's family. The world always thought that although Qiao Huanqing was born into a merchant family, he was still considered rich. Money could make the devil turn millstones. Moreover, he was so outstanding. If he married the daughter of a minor official, it would be more than enough. However, he married Wen Yuyin, who was from an ordinary family, who had neither money nor power. Why? If he liked Wen Yuyin's beauty, he could have just asked her to be his concubine. Why did she have to be his wife? The young girl's gazes towards Hien immediately carried traces of envy and jealousy. Ling Xiu's gaze shifted slightly and landed on Xiao Ju's face. The young man was handsome to begin with. At this moment, he was sitting lazily. However, due to his occasional indifference, he looked even more attractive. He was comparable to all the men in Jiang. She looked at Hien again. She was only the daughter of an ordinary family. How could she be compared to her in terms of appearance and status? A trace of unwillingness surfaced in her heart. Wen Yin was not worthy of Qiao Huanqing. She was the only one who deserved to stand side by side with Qiao Huanqing. She stood up and said softly, "Today, Lord Cui has found his family. This is a good thing worth celebrating. I'm not talented, but I'm willing to play a song for Lord Cui to congratulate you." After she finished speaking, her gaze swept past Xiao Ju, and she revealed a shy smile. The young men in the banquet were overjoyed when they heard this. They stared at Ling Xiu with sparkling eyes. Jiang City's young ladies had always been bold and confident. If they had outstanding talent, it would not be embarrassing to show it in front of everyone. However, Ling Xiu was different from the others. She did not like to take the initiative to show off. Even at a banquet, she would use all sorts of excuses and would only agree when she had no choice. However, it was the first time that she took the initiative like today. Moreover, it was her best zither skill. This made everyone look forward to it. Cui Yuezhi was also very happy. He waved his hand and said, "Good. Xiu, you've opened our eyes today. If you play well, Uncle will give you a big gift." Lord Ling and Madame Ling smiled. They were already used to such glorious things. After all, the entire Jiang City knew that Ling Xiu was unparalleled in talent and beauty. The servant quickly brought a zither. This zither was also emerald in color. It was as green as the grass and trees in spring. She was also wearing a light green gauze dress. She really looked like a charming spirit in spring. Her slender fingers, bathed in incense, gently plucked the zither strings. She was playing Late Spring. The spring breeze blew the horse-wooling burr. In the warm West Lake in March, the strings touch the water and the orioles in the flower market. I don't know if the music will reach here. She frowns as she passes the mountains. Her hair is piled up in the willows. The sound of the zither was pleasing to the ear. It brushed past people's ears, making them feel intoxicated. Ian was also the same. He only felt that this young lady's hands were really skillful. Compared to his own movements of plucking the zither, if he was not careful, he could pluck the strings and break them, not to mention playing a complete song. She was really amazing. She was intoxicated by the music. When she glanced over, she saw that Xiao Ju was unmoved. He only lowered his head and drank his tea. She could not help but touch him and whispered, "Why aren't you listening?" Xiao Ju replied, "I'm listening." "Then why don't you look like it's very nice to listen to?" "What do you mean by very nice to listen to?" Ian pointed to the other side with his mouth. Like them, the young men present, and even some of the older young masters, were staring at Ling Xiao in a daze. It was as if they were drowning in the sound of the zither. Their eyes were flashing with admiration. Xiao Ju retracted his gaze and said coldly, "Boring. You're really hard to please." Ian muttered softly, "I think it's very nice to listen to. She's also very pretty. If I can get to know such a girl, I'll definitely be very happy." "Very happy?" Xiao Ju suddenly smiled. He looked at him and said with interest, "I hope you'll be as happy from now on." Ian did not understand what he meant. He only said, "Of course I'll be happy from now on." While they were talking, Ling Xiao had finished her song. She looked at Xiao Ju and saw that Xiao Ju was talking to He Yin with a smile. He seemed to be teasing her. Ling Xiao saw this scene, and her heart sank. She was even more dissatisfied. She stood up, and the people around her praised her. Cui Yuezhi also smiled and said, "Ah Xiao, your zither song lingers on. But the sound still lingers in my ears 9 days." No one would deny her zither music. Ling Xiao looked at Xiao Ju again, but he lowered his head and drank his tea. He did not even look at her. Instead, Wen Yuyan beside him looked at her with a smile, as if he was mocking her. Ling Xiao's smile was a little stiff. After a while, she said humbly, "Ah Xiao doesn't dare to show off in front of an expert. I heard that Madame Qiao from Huzhou is a famous talented woman. Her zither skills are superb. Since we're fated to be here today, can you let Ah Xiao experience it?" After saying that, she looked at Yin with anticipation. Let everyone see how exquisite Madame's zither skills are. Ian was watching happily. When he heard that, he was stunned. Why was she suddenly mentioned? When Yin's zither skills were superb? Was that so? Why didn't she know? Ian looked at Lin Shuanghe for help. This was her husband. Lin Shuanghe turned his head away as if nothing had happened. He pretended to talk to the people around him. He did not intend to help her. "I think that's not necessary," Ian said. "Miss Ah Xiao's zither skills are already very good. I don't need to do anything more." "How can you say that it's unnecessary?" Ling Xiao looked at Yin with sincerity. Ah Xiao really wants to listen to Madame's zither music. Yin was speechless. Her zither music? Her zither music could drive away evil spirits and calm the house. It was not for appreciation. When Ling Xiao saw Yin's awkward expression, she could not help but feel proud. She thought that the rumors about Wen Yuyin's talents were probably just a pretense. If she could make a fool of herself in front of everyone today, she would become the joke of Jiang City. Yin Min, who had always been at odds with Ling Xiao, could not help but gloat when she saw this scene. Previously at the embroidery workshop, although it was Xiao Ju who said those sarcastic words, Yin Min blamed He Yin for it. A woman who was admired by such an outstanding man was always particularly eye-catching, especially when she did not look special. She made people feel that she did not live up to her reputation. He Yin looked at Xiao Ju, who was beside him. Xiao Ju was drinking tea leisurely with a calm expression. No wonder, he said. "I hope you can be as happy from now on." Did he already guess that this would happen? How did he know? This kind of strange thought was unpredictable. How could Xiao Ju see through it? Did she have the ability to read minds? He muttered in his heart. He reached under the table and secretly tugged at Xiao Ju's sleeve. He whispered, "Can you help me?" Xiao Ju said calmly, "Didn't you learn it before?" "I didn't learn it," He said, Lin Shuang had taught me before. He even said that I was already very good. But when I heard this girl play just now, I feel that my playing is not quite right. His words were tactful, but in fact, it was not just not quite right. It was ridiculously wrong. You don't know anything about zither, chess, calligraphy, or painting, he said, other than swindling. What else do you know? Yin said hesitantly, breaking a boulder on my chest? But she couldn't just show others how to break a boulder on her chest. Xiao Ju, if I expose myself, we're all finished. Help me, Yin pleaded, Commander-in-Chief, Young Master, Second Young Master Xiao. Husband? Xiao Ju was obviously disgusted by this husband. He said, Speak properly. Yin, then I'll take it that you agree. The two of them spoke very softly. In the eyes of the crowd, Yin seemed to be acting spoiled to Xiao Ju. Xiao Ju was very indulgent. Cui Yuezhi smiled and said, What? Does Yin not want to play the zither? To be honest, after we got married, I made a promise with my wife. My wife's zither skills are superb, and she can only play for me. Xiao Ju said calmly. So today, I'm afraid I can't do as you wish. Everyone was stunned. Yin was also stunned. He never thought that Xiao Ju would use this reason. But thinking about it, this reason was very good. After all, if he used other reasons once, there would be a next time. This reason would also prevent the next time. After all, there was no reason to break a promise. Ling Xiao's expression was stiff. She looked at the young lady sitting beside the young man. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore. She smiled and said, But today is the day that young Master and Master Cui are reunited. There are so many people here. It's not a big deal to break the promise once. My promise with my wife cannot be changed. Xiao Ju looked at her calmly. You must listen. I can do it for you. At the end of the sentence, his tone became cold. He was already impatient. Ling Xiao was also shocked by his coldness. For a moment, she didn't dare to speak. Cui Yuezhi smiled and said, Huanqing also knows how to play the zither? I only know a little. Then I want to hear Huanqing play the zither today. Cui Yuezhi laughed loudly. My Cui family has never produced such an elegant person. Zhongfu, wipe the zither again. No need, Xiao Ju said. Butler Lin, bring the evening fragrant zither. Xiao Ju was very particular about the things he used. Yin meant that he knew. But in the eyes of those who didn't know, especially Ling Xiao, it was as if Xiao Ju didn't want to use the same zither as her, because he didn't like her. She couldn't help but bite her lips. She reluctantly returned to her seat. Lin Shuang quickly brought over Xiao Ju's evening fragrance zither. Yin still remembered this evening fragrance zither. Before she went to the Liangzhou guards to pretend to be Chengli Su, she was drunk and crushed this zither. Xiao Ju even brought it to Liangzhou to get it repaired. Just by looking at it, she knew that it was very expensive. Fortunately, Xiao Ju didn't ask her to pay for it. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to pay it back even if she sold herself. She vaguely remembered that she had heard Xiao Ju play the zither, but she was half drunk and her memory was blurry. Now that she saw this zither, the memories of her drunken stupor flooded her mind. The man sat in front of the zither, burning incense and bathing his hands. Unlike Ling Xiao's deliberate playing, he was much more lazy and casual. His movements were very natural. If he wasn't someone who played the zither for a long time, he wouldn't be able to do it so smoothly. At a certain moment, Yin seemed to have seen the dissolute youth lying on the loquat tree in the Xianchang dojo. But he had grown up. The zither strings were plucked. His hands were slender and had distinct joints. They were very good-looking. When they fell on the zither strings, a pleasant sound flowed out. This sound was different from the late spring that Ling Xiao had just played. It was different from the cheerful late spring. It was quiet with a hint of melancholy, like a river illuminated by the bright moon, flowing into the distance. He was playing River Moon. This song was very difficult and tested one's zither skills. He had heard someone play it before. It was her master, Lu Buwang. However, when Lu Buwang played it, he was more reminiscing or lost. The feeling of Xiao Ju playing it was different from that of Lu Buwang. When a handsome man did elegant things, He was always particularly eye-catching. Even Ling Xiao, who had just been frightened by Xiao Ju, or Yin Min'er, who had been mocked by Xiao Ju before, and even more people, couldn't help but be immersed in his music at this moment. Yin was no exception. When he played the zither, his disc wing-like eyelashes drooped down, covering the indifference in his eyes, leaving only gentleness. His facial features were excessively handsome, and his thin lips were slightly pursed, making him look restrained and charming. Yin thought that it was indeed difficult to see someone more outstanding and good-looking than him in this world. When the song ended, Xiao Ju withdrew his hands. Everyone stared at him and was silent for a moment. If it weren't for his River Moon, Ling Xiao's Late Spring should be very outstanding. But after comparison, Ling Xiao's zither skills seemed mediocre and not so amazing. Both men and women stared at Xiao Ju, and there was only one confusion in their hearts at this moment. Wasn't it said that Xiao Huanqing, who came from Huzhou, was adopted by a merchant's family? But now it seemed that the information was wrong. Such a person didn't seem to be raised by a merchant's family. Cui Yueji's face became even more proud. The more he looked at Xiao Ju, the more satisfied he was. He laughed and said, "Huanqing, your song stunned us all." Previously, Her Highness always said that Xiao's zither skills were the best in Jiang City. The next time I bring you to the prince's mansion, Her Highness will definitely praise you if she hears your music. When everyone heard this, they all had different thoughts. Since Cui Yueji mentioned the princess, it meant that he wanted to bring Xiao Huanqing into the prince's mansion. If that was the case, they couldn't treat him as an ordinary merchant. Xiao Ju smiled slightly and glanced at Yin with his deep eyes. He said calmly, "I've embarrassed myself. To be honest, my zither skills are not even 1/10 of Madam's." "Really?" Cui Yueji looked at Yin in surprise. "How good must it be?" Yin blushed. It was quite embarrassing. Chapter 134. After Xiao Ju finished playing the zither and received everyone's praise, she returned to her seat. After that, Yin no longer had the mood to eat heartily. Who knew if there would be other people coming over to see her other talents? What if they wanted her to write poems? She couldn't just say, "I have an agreement with my husband." She sat down nervously all the way to the end of the table. Fortunately, nothing else happened. After eating and drinking, everyone dispersed. Yin followed Xiao Ju out. It was only at this time that he was able to speak with Cui Yuji alone. Cui Yuji's oldest concubine walked beside Yin, slightly behind Cui Yuji and Xiao Ju. This concubine was older than Yin. She looked gentle and honest, and her surname was Wei. Concubine Wei said, "Young master is really good to young mistress." Yin was stunned. Just as he was about to ask, "Why do you say that?" he thought about it and said with a smile, "Yes, my husband loves me very much. He usually listens to me and is always on my side. I also feel that I am really lucky in my previous life to be able to find such a good husband in this life." Concubine Wei laughed and said, "Everyone says that the women of Jiang are straightforward. I think young mistress is the one who has something to say." Yin laughed in his heart. If he gave Xiao Ju the title of excessively doting on wife, wouldn't she be able to use this title to do whatever she wanted in Jiang? Xiao Ju probably didn't expect that she would dig a hole for herself. As they spoke, the two of them had already entered the main hall of the residence. They didn't know which concubine of Cui Yuji's had already prepared hot tea and was waiting for them to enter. Cui Yuji sat down on a chair and waved his hand. "All of you are dismissed." The concubines and servants all left. He smiled and said, "Huanqing Yin, sit." Although Cui Yuji was a cavalry officer, he didn't put on any airs. He looked no different from a soldier in the army. He looked honest and kind, but he had a pair of bright and sharp eyes. They were like a blunt and heavy saber. When the saber was unsheathed, it was terrifying. Xiao Ju and Yin sat down on the chairs beside him. "Yesterday, I wanted to come back and pick you up, but Her Highness the Princess held a banquet and couldn't come back. It's only today that we meet." He carefully observed Xiao Ju for a while, then sighed and said, "Just now at the banquet, I only thought that you looked good. Now that I look carefully, you and my dead big brother do have some similarities. He looks similar to me as well, Chui Yueji said, as expected of a member of my Chui family. Xiao Zhu nodded. When you were born, I even carried you. At that time, you were only the size of two of my fists. Maybe only one of my fists, Chui Yueji said. Big brother couldn't bear to let me touch you. Later, you were taken away. His eyes dimmed. Big brother and sister-in-law missed you before they died. If they could see you being so outstanding today, they would be very happy. Xiao Zhu was silent. Chui Yueji laughed. Look at me. Why would I talk about these unhappy things? What a bummer. Huanqing Yin, you came at the right time. In a few days, it will be the spring equinox. Jiang's Water God Festival will be held. You must join in the fun. I guarantee that you won't want to leave. Yin was surprised. Spring equinox? What? Chui Yueji said. Is there something wrong? No. Yin laughed. It's just that my birthday is also the spring equinox. A few days later. What a coincidence. Really? Chui Yueji was also surprised for a moment. Then he laughed. It seems that Yin and Jiang are fated. Your birthday coincides with the Water God Festival. Huanqing, when the time comes, you must celebrate Yin's birthday. Xiao Zhu glanced at her and said, Okay. They chatted for a while more. Then, Chui Yueji stood up and said, Huanqing Yin, come with me to the ancestral hall to offer incense to big brother and sister-in-law. You haven't seen each other for many years. If they know that Huanqing is married now, they will be very happy. Yin and Xiao Zhu followed him to the ancestral hall. After Chui Yueji offered incense, it was already late. Chui Yueji asked the servants to bring them back to their rooms so that they could rest early. When tomorrow arrived, they would go sightseeing in Jiang City. When the two of them returned to their rooms, Yin impatiently sat down on the bed and said, I'm so tired. I've been sitting upright for the whole day. Pretending to be a woman is really not something that humans can do. Even the daily training in the martial arts field is much easier than this. Pretending to be a woman? Xiao Zhu chuckled. It seems like you really don't think of yourself as a woman. Yin was also very helpless. He thought that this couple that Xiao Zhu found was also a talented woman. If she wanted to pretend to be the daughter of a military officer or the girl who helps the docks move firewood for sure too, it would be perfect. Xiao Zhu took off her outer garment and placed it on the wooden table next to the sofa. Yin sat up. I really have to thank you for today. If it wasn't for your help, something big would have happened. Didn't I spoil my wife too much? Didn't I do everything for your sake? Second young Master Zhao's voice carried a hint of sarcasm. That's what I should do. Yin, did you hear that? Although it was all a lie, it was still very embarrassing for Xiao Zhu to hear it. She smiled and said, I just wanted to make our relationship seem more loving and real. Young master, please don't be angry. Just as they were talking, someone knocked on the door. Yin said, Come in. Cui Jiao and Hong Xiao each carried a basket of food and placed the plates on the table one by one. Yin was startled and asked, I didn't ask anyone to make food. I asked. Xiao Zhu said, Leave it here and go out. Cui Jiao and Hong Xiao obeyed and left the room. Yin asked curiously, Didn't you eat enough? You were at the banquet just now. Xiao Zhu sneered. I wonder who was the one who couldn't sit still because of Ling Xiao. He was so frightened that he didn't even eat. He said, Promising? Yin muttered, You found out. Xiao Zhu, yes, everyone found out. Is it that obvious? Yin was very suspicious, but when he saw the food on the table, he immediately became happy. He said, So these are specially for me? Thank you, young master. Young master, you're too kind. There's no one better than you in the world. Don't say any more. Xiao Zhu frowned slightly. It makes me sick. Yin was already used to his way of speaking. He pulled him to the table and sat down. Just treat it as supper. You can eat with us. I'm not eating. Eat. Yin pulled his sleeve and didn't let him go. He gave him a pair of chopsticks. Look, there are 2 pairs of chopsticks here. They were originally prepared for 2 people. I can't finish them alone. Young master, please help me. Xiao Ju seemed to have heard a joke. He said lightly, Lady, he might have underestimated his good appetite. Although I have a good appetite, I'm not a glutton. He Yin said, besides, haven't you heard of the saying, a feast for the eyes? I could eat 3 bowls of rice, but after seeing young master's good looks, I can eat 5 bowls. Xiao Ju choked for a moment. Are you a pig? Don't speak so harshly. He Yin said as she pushed a plate of shrimp seeds with winter bamboo shoots and 3 gourd rolls in front of him. Don't you like to eat these? Eat. Xiao Ju was stunned. After a moment, he looked up at her. How did you know? He Yin stuffed a piece of 1,000-layer steamed cake in her mouth. I saw you eat twice during breakfast. During lunch, you did it again. You won't touch anything you don't like. I guess you like it, but you're strange. Why do you like to eat vegetarian food? Are all rich people so particular? She thought to herself. No wonder his waist was so thin. Xiao Ju didn't answer her. He just lowered his head and ate slowly. He Yin didn't care about him. When she was young, she wanted to be a man. Because she was afraid of being exposed, she especially liked to study the details. After all, the details determine success or failure. She carefully observed all the men in the He family. At one time, some people even thought that he had a mental problem. Later, when he was in the army, it was better. After all, he had been a man for many years and already had experience. If she really wanted to observe a person, she would be able to observe very carefully. Moreover, Xiao Ju was now with her. It was too easy for her to know what he liked to eat and what he disliked to eat. Is your birthday really after the spring equinox? Tian was eating happily when Xiao Ju suddenly asked. She paused for a moment, but didn't show it on her face. She said indifferently, How is that possible? I just said it casually. What if Master Chui wants to give me a birthday gift? Wouldn't I take the opportunity to make a lot of money? Xiao Ju snorted. Liar. How am I a liar? Ian took an inch and wanted a mile. She boldly retorted. I think young master was the one who pretended to be perfect at the banquet today. You fooled everyone. What, I have an agreement with my wife. Haha, young master. To be honest, I didn't expect to hear such words from you. Xiao Ju calmly looked at He Yan's teasing. When she was done laughing, he asked, Is it very funny? It is very funny. He nodded. Then you can deal with it yourself in the future, Madam Xiao. He Yan couldn't laugh anymore. She said, Young master, I just said it casually. Please don't take it to heart. Xiao Ju ignored her and drank the soup unhurriedly. Stingy. She said, You are so stingy that it makes people gasp in amazement. Xiao Ju was still unmoved. He rolled her eyes and softened her voice. Husband, this concubine was wrong. Please forgive this concubine's rudeness. This concubine won't dare to do it again. Husband? Husband? Xiao Ju couldn't take it anymore. Shut up, he said. You'd better speak properly. He Yin understood that the cold and emotionless military governor Xiao was someone who was amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. She laughed loudly. Her laughter traveled to the room next door. Fei Nu and Qi Wu, who were playing cards with Lin Shuanghe, raised their heads at the same time. Qi Wu sighed and said, To actually go to such an extent to put on an act, the governor is really too hard-working. That He Yin is the same. He practically thinks of himself as a woman. If they're like this, what reason do we have not to work hard? Fei Nu was speechless. Lin Shuanghe heard this and also held back his laughter. Yes, indeed, they are very hard-working. At night, one person slept on the bed and the other slept on the side of the couch. The next morning, He Yin woke up slightly later. When he woke up, he saw Xiao Ju standing at the door talking to Fei Nu and Qi Wu. He Yin washed up and Chui Jiao and Hong Qiao brought breakfast to the kitchen. He Yin said to Xiao Ju, Young master, it's time to eat. You eat by yourself. Xiao Ju said, I have something to do today and will not be in the residence. You and Lin Shuanghe stay in the residence. Don't run around. Are you going out? What are you going to do? He Yin asked. Can you bring me along? Xiao Ju was silent for a moment. She said, It's not convenient. He Yin hesitated for a moment. He walked over and whispered, Are you going to look for Chai Anchi's whereabouts? Chi Wu was stunned when he heard this. He didn't expect Xiao Ju to tell Yin about this. Yes, it will be suspicious if I bring you along. Yin nodded. Okay, then you go. It was rare for her to be so straightforward. She didn't stick to him like a tail. Xiao Ju was surprised for a moment. She looked at her thoughtfully. Yin turned and walked into the room. If you want to go, go quickly. If I change my mind, you won't be able to get rid of me. Xiao Ju didn't say anything. She led Chi Wu and Fei Nu away. After they left, Yin finished his breakfast alone. Cui Yuezhi wasn't in the residence. He wanted to train the soldiers early in the morning. Yin went to the next room to look for Lin Shuanghe. He didn't find him. Lin Shuanghe's servant smiled and said, Housekeeper Lin went out early in the morning. He said he was going to buy some things and will be back later. Yin thought for a moment and understood. Lin Shuanghe wasn't a real housekeeper. He had been around Xiao Ju for the past few days, so he was probably tired of her. It was rare for Xiao Ju to go out today. He had some free time, so he naturally went out to play for the whole day. However, this person was too unkind. He didn't call her along when he went out. He was probably afraid that she would complain to Xiao Ju. However, Lin Shuanghe's actions were exactly what Yin wanted. She had been in Jiang City for a few days, but because she was now in Yuyin, she was always with Xiao Ju. She didn't have any extra time to inquire about Lu Buwang's whereabouts. Today, Xiao Ju and Lin Shuanghe weren't here, so she could act alone. When Lu Buwang parted with her, he had said that if she had the chance to pass by Jiang City in the future, there was a tea house at the foot of the Lian Mountains outside Jiang City. If she wanted to find him, she could go to the tea house to inquire. She might have a chance to meet him again. Yin put on her outer clothes and packed her things. Seeing this, Cui Jiao asked, Madam, are you going out? Young master and the housekeeper aren't here today. I don't know anyone in the residence, so it's quite boring. Let's go out and take a look. The weather is very good these days. Why don't we go for a walk in the mountains outside Jiang City? The two maidservants looked at each other. Why would she want to go for a walk in the mountains? It's settled then, Yin said. After thinking for a while, she put the 9-section whip that could be stretched into several pieces in her arms, turned around, and walked out of the door. Let's go. Without Xiao Ju, Yin was free and unrestrained. She was a guest of the Cui family, so no one in the Cui family dared to stop her. Zhong Fu was worried about her going out alone, so he wanted her to take 2 guards from the Cui family with her. But Yin refused. I'm just going to walk around nearby. I won't go far. Moreover, it's broad daylight and there are many people here. There shouldn't be anyone who dares to steal. Housekeeper Zhong can rest assured. I'll go find my husband after a while. The 2 guards by my husband's side are skilled in martial arts, so they should be enough. Only then did Zhong Fu reluctantly agree. After leaving the Cui family, Yin asked Cui Jiao to hire a carriage not far from the residence. She asked the coachman to head out of the city. Hong Qiao carefully asked, Madam, are we really going out of the city? We're not going out of the city. We're going to take a look at Qian Mountain outside the city. Yin said, when I came here, I passed by Qian Mountain. I saw the beautiful scenery on the mountain and yearned for it. Since I'm free today, it's just right to go now. She spoke as if she was telling the truth. The 2 maidservants did not doubt her. When they arrived at the city gate, Yin showed the token that Cui Yuji gave her to the city gate guards. When the city gate guards saw that she was someone from the Cui family, they easily let her go. Yin was allowed to leave the city. Qian Mountain was just outside the city gate. It was not difficult to walk. When they reached the foot of the mountain, Yin pretended to say, I'm a bit thirsty. Why don't we look for a tea house nearby and rest for a while before going? Cui Jiao and Hong Qiao naturally would not say no. Hong Qiao got off the carriage and said, Madam, rest in the carriage first. This servant will go down and take a look. Not long after, Hong Qiao came back and said with a smile, there's a tea house nearby. It's not far away. Madam, this servant will help you down. Let's walk there directly. Yin readily agreed. Not long after they walked, they saw a tea house under a locust tree at the foot of the mountain. There were 2 or 3 customers drinking tea and chatting. Yin went up and asked for a few cups of tea and a little bit of tea. She let Cui Jiao and Hong Qiao moisten their throats with the coachman. Madam, this servant is not thirsty. This servant is not thirsty either. It's such a long journey. How can you not be thirsty? Ian said, drink. I'll ask the shopkeeper if there's anything fun around here. Without waiting for the two to answer, Ian walked straight ahead. The owners of the tea house were a middle-aged couple. Their heads were wrapped with a green cloth and their skin was dark. Probably because of the heat, it was a little red. When the aunt saw Ian, she asked, Miss, are the tea and snacks not to your taste? Ian said with a smile, No, I'm here to ask you about someone. Ask about someone? The shopkeeper put the handkerchief in his hand on his shoulder. Miss, who do you want to ask about? His name is Lu Bawang. Ian gestured. He's a head taller than me. He's quite good-looking. He's about 40 years old. He carries a zither and a sword. He likes to wear white clothes like a swordsman. After a pause, she added, he doesn't necessarily wear white clothes. In short, he's an extremely elegant man. After all, she hadn't seen Lu Bawang for many years. Perhaps the current Lu Bawang didn't like to wear white clothes anymore. The aunt thought for a moment and smiled, saying, Miss, the person you're talking about is layperson Yun Lin, right? Layperson Yun Lin? Yes, we don't know his name. However, a few days after the Water God Festival every year, he'll appear in our tea house and ask us for a cup of tea. As for layperson Yun Lin, we just heard others call him that, so we called him that. We don't know his name either. However, according to what you said, the person who wears white clothes, is very elegant, is good-looking, and carries a zither should be this person. Ian was delighted and only asked, Then do you know where he is now? Miss, you're making things difficult for us, the shopkeeper said. In this place, we don't ask people where they came from. Naturally, we don't know where he is now, but don't be discouraged. He comes here every year after the Water God Festival. I think he should be in Jiang City now to catch up with the Water God Festival during the spring equinox. Ian looked troubled. Jiang City wasn't small. If she borrowed Cui Yueji's men, it might not be difficult to find Lu Bawang. Unfortunately, this matter couldn't be known to others. Naturally, she could only look for him alone. It wouldn't be easy. Seeing her strange expression, the aunt asked, Miss, who is he to you? Why are you looking for him? He's an old friend that I haven't seen for a long time. Ian smiled bitterly. After a moment, she said, If that layperson Yun Lin comes here to drink tea again after the Water God Festival this year, I'll have to trouble the shopkeeper to help me pass a message to him. Tell him that he is now in Jiang City. Please don't leave and wait to meet him here. Okay, the shopkeeper said with a smile. I'll definitely bring it to him. Only then did Yin feel relieved. She returned to her seat in the tea house and sat down. Cui Jiao and Hong Xiao said, Madam, the tea is cold. It won't taste good if it's cold, so I won't drink it, Yin said. To be honest, with the lesson from her previous life, she really didn't dare to drink tea casually from outside. The two maidservants looked at each other. After a while, Hong Xiao asked, Madam, have you thought about where to go? I just asked the shopkeeper. He said that there are wolves on the mountain these few days, so it's best not to go up the mountain. Yin lied without changing her expression. I thought about it and felt that it's too dangerous for weak women like us. Therefore, we won't go up the mountain today. Let's go straight back to the residence. The coachman was speechless. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, he didn't say anything. How could she go out for a walk and then go back without doing anything? Wasn't she just playing with people? The madam of Wu province couldn't be offended. She was clearly arrogant because she was pampered. She was too much. On the other side, Xiao Ju and the other two found the location of Tsuiwei Pavilion. Lei Ho said that the person who contacted him by letter was in Jiang's Tsuiwei Pavilion. Xiao Ju suspected that this person was Chai Anshi. However, the shop in front of her had become a piece of charred wood. When she smelled it carefully, she could still smell the burnt smell. This Tsuiwei Pavilion was originally a shop that sold jewelry. The scout who replied cupped his hands and said, Half a month ago, a fire broke out one night and burned Tsuiwei Pavilion to the ground. The shop assistants, shopkeeper, and the new accountant, Mr. Chai, didn't run out. The person was gone, and the clues were cut off. Are there any bones? Xiao Ju asked. They've all been burned to ashes. How could there be any bones? The neighbors all said that it was very tragic. This Suiwei pavilion has always been here. The government said that this place will be renovated in a few days, but the surrounding shops are all closed because they think it's unlucky. Chi Wu threw the silver ingot to the scout, who kept it. He cupped his hands and disappeared into the crowd. Xiao Ju looked at his back and said after a while, he escaped. It didn't burn earlier or later. It just had to burn half a month ago. Obviously, Lei Ho's capture was exposed, so the other party escaped. Do we still need to investigate? Young master. Fei Nu asked, now that the clues are cut off. There's no need to investigate. Xiao Ju turned around. The two of them were stunned. Since the other party knows that they've been exposed, they must be hiding in the dark and waiting for an opportunity to make a move. The enemy is in the dark, and so am I. Therefore, we don't have to do anything. Just wait, he said. Chapter 135. When Yin went back, Xiao Ju hadn't come back yet. She said to Cui Jiao and Hong Xiao, I was really willful today. I'm afraid that my husband will blame me for running around without guards when he comes back. So, don't mention to him that the three of us went out today. Cui Jiao and Hong Xiao nodded. You can leave. She fell on the bed. I'll rest for a while. The two maids left the inner room. Yin lay on the bed with a lot on her mind. Lu Buong might be in Jiang City, but how could she find him? If she had known this would happen, she would have agreed on a specific location with Lu Buong when they parted. A tea house where she didn't even know his name was a bit careless. But even if she found Lu Buong, what should she say? Yin was no longer the same as before. Even she herself felt that it was ridiculous to talk about reincarnating in someone else's body. However, she still wanted to see Lu Buong. After all, in her previous life, Lu Buong was one of the few people who had given her real warmth. He was both a teacher and a friend. The reason why General Fei Hong could become General Fei Hong was because of Lu Buong's skills. Thinking of General Fei Hong, she couldn't help but think of He Rufei. She wondered how He Rufei was now and whether her former subordinates had found something wrong. Su Zhiheng. He Yin and Su Zhiheng should have been married. She was the legitimate miss of the He family, the real daughter of a noble family. He Yin felt inexplicably irritable. She hugged the quilt and rolled to the back of the room against the wall. Her face was facing the wall, and she was unhappy. Someone's voice sounded behind her. Why are you reflecting on your mistakes? He Yin turned around. Young master. She sat up with a grunt. You're back. Xiao Ju glanced at her, took off her coat, and said, Are you bored out of your mind? It's really boring here. She sat on the bed, looked up at Xiao Ju, and asked, How was it? Did you find Chai Anshi's whereabouts today? No. Why didn't you find him? He Yin asked curiously. Is there a mistake in the information? He's dead. He Yin was stunned. A fire burned them to death. Not even their bones were left. He Yin frowned. That's not right. Why did he die at this time? And he was burned to death without leaving any trace. Is this a lie? Xiao Ju smiled and said, You're very experienced in liars. He Yin sat cross-legged and analyzed for him. I'm just being observant. Could it be that this person had received some kind of news in advance? But young master, you've always been secretive. No one should know that we're here in Jiang. Moreover, Jiang is easy to leave but hard to enter. If he really wants to hide from someone, Jiang is the best choice. I don't think he wants to leave. Xiao Ju took a sip of the tea on the table and said lazily, Continue. He Yin said, Then he must be hiding and waiting for the right time to do something big. The best time to fish in troubled waters is when the waters are the most murky. When the waters in Jiang are the most murky, isn't that the Water God Festival? These days, everyone is saying that the Water God Festival is the biggest festival in Jiang. With such a grand occasion, it'll be the right time, place, and people to cause trouble. Xiao Ju laughed. Her tone was not praising, but it was not harsh either. Lady, he is really smart. Not really. He Yin modestly waved his hand. Compared to young master, I'm still a far cry. Xiao Ju glanced at her. She did not know why, but her gloomy mood was lifted. She shook her head and sneered, "Flattery. It's only right for a concubine to flatter my husband." Ian deliberately disgusted her. This person would get used to it after being disgusted a few more times. Xiaoju looked at her with a faint smile. "Before you talk about a concubine, please take a look at your sitting posture. Even your husband can't compare to your sitting posture." Ian lowered her head and retracted her crossed legs. She coughed twice. I forgot. I think you're confused." He sneered. "Are you a man or a woman?" "It's not like I don't want to be a woman," Ian muttered. "But someone has to treat me as a woman first." Xiaoju was startled and raised his eyes to look at her. After the young girl finished speaking, she hugged the quilt and rolled to the corner of the couch. She was so happy that she didn't seem to realize that there was a trace of disappointment in her words. But someone caught it. The fourth day of the middle of spring was the middle of the equinox. The moon lingered in the green field, and the sky was clear with intermittent clouds. On the day of the spring equinox, the entire city of Jiang celebrated the Water God Festival. Early in the morning, Hien lay on the bed. As soon as she woke up, she felt a slight pain in her abdomen. She reached out to touch it and was shocked. She hurriedly got up. Without greeting Xiaoju, she secretly took out a menstrual pad from her bag and walked to the toilet. These days in Jiang City, things happen one after another. She had almost forgotten about it. Calculating the days, it was about time for her period to come. If one were to talk about her past life and present life, Hien's biggest headache in the military camp would be her period. There were always a few days when it was inconvenient, and she had to carefully avoid the eyes of others. In her previous life, it was fine, probably because she had a strong body. She did not feel any discomfort. But now, Lady He was pampered and spoiled. Her period was also a bit painful. In the military camp, she could only grit her teeth and endure it. Now that she had not trained for a long time, her body was tired, and she immediately felt uncomfortable. Hien put on the menstrual pad and came out of the toilet. She could not help but sigh in her heart. Of all times, she had to come today during the Water God Festival. Wasn't she just causing trouble? She slowly returned to the room. Chui Jiao came over with a bowl of iced cheese and fresh goat's milk. The Chui family's food was really delicious. Hien really liked these snacks. Today, however, she rubbed her stomach and shook her head. "I'm not eating." Xiaoju looked at her in surprise. Hien sighed and went to the inner room to pour herself some tea. Xiaoju stared at her back and was puzzled. She asked Hong Xiao, "What's wrong with her?" Hong Xiao shook her head. "I don't know. Madam has been like this since she came back from the toilet." "You don't even know?" Lin Shuanghe walked in from outside. When he heard this, he leaned close to Xiaoju and whispered, "Her period is here. You have to take care of this girl during her period. Don't let her tire herself out. Don't move heavy objects and don't eat cold food. She's in a bad mood and might throw a tantrum at you." As soon as he finished speaking, Hien shouted from the room, "Chui Jiao, forget it. You should bring that bowl of goat's milk over. I thought about it and still want to eat it." "Xiaoju," he said to Chui Jiao, "take it out. Don't give it to her." Chui Jiao was in a difficult position. Between the kind madam and the cold young master, she chose to listen to the young master. She took the bowl of goat's milk out. Hien sat on the couch for a while, but did not see any movement. When he walked out, he saw Xiaoju and Lin Shuanghe. There were no more snacks on the table. He asked, "Where did Chui Jiao go?" "When we leave the Fu, you should quickly dress up." Xiaoju said, "Don't wait too long." Hien asked, "Now?" "Yes." Lin Shuanghe answered with a smile. "Official Chui and the others are already in the main hall." Hien did not dare to delay any longer. The Water God Festival was a traditional festival in Jiang. Every year during the spring equinox, there would be various kinds of activities on the canal in the city center. The men were fine, but the women had to comb their hair in the style of Jiang. Hong Xiao lived near Jiang, so she was very good at combing hair. In just a moment, she had braided Hien's hair into a Jiang girl's braid. A thin braid circled around her forehead, and the braid was braided into the back of her hair. It was very delicate, and only a rose hairpin was inserted into her right temple. She was wearing a bright red long dress that was very well cinched around her waist. On her feet were black boots embroidered with small flowers. She looked lively and cute, with bright eyes and white teeth. She really looked like a girl from Jiang City. Ian walked out of the house. Lin Shuang's eyes lit up, and he said, "Our madam is really too beautiful. She looks good in everything." "You flatter me," Yin said humbly, and followed Xiao Ju and the others to the main hall. When they arrived at the main hall, just as Lin Shuang said, Cui Yuezhi and his concubines were already waiting. "Wanqing is here." Cui Yuezhi stood up and said with a smile, "With Yu Yin's dressing today, those who don't know better would really think that she is a girl who grew up in Jiang. Don't you think so?" The concubines obediently agreed. "It's getting late. Let's set off then," Cui Yuezhi said. Today in Jiang, they could not take carriages because the people had all gone out. The streets were crowded with people, and it was very inconvenient to take carriages. The group of people walked to the canal. The canal was located in the center of the city. It passed through the city and circled around Jiang. Yin thought that Jiang's Water God Festival was similar to the Dragon Boat Festival in the Central Plains. There were rivers of all sizes in the city, and wherever there was water, there were all kinds of beautifully decorated boats. There were also boatmen dressed in red clothes and black scars on the boats. They were singing and rowing, and they were probably singing Jiang's folk songs. It was very lively. There were also girls singing along with them by the river, and the atmosphere was very lively. Jiang's Water God Festival is also a festival for young girls and young men to pledge their love. The concubine surnamed Wei explained to Yin, "Other than worshipping the water god, there are also many festivals for lovers. I heard that Miss Yin and our young master are newly married. You can go and join in the fun." Yin said, "There's no need for that." Cui Yuezhi heard their conversation. He laughed and said, That's right. I remember Jiang's famous Lover's Bridge. You should go and take a look. Jiang's legends say that lovers who cross Lover's Bridge during the Water God Festival will never be separated. Yin whispered to Xiao Ju, "Did you hear that? We will never be separated." Xiao Ju's gaze fell on her face. She sneered, "How scary." Yin was speechless. After all, they were not a real couple. The words "never be separated" did not sound like a blessing. Instead, it sounded more like a curse. Unfortunately, Cui Yuezhi seemed to have an endless amount of concern for his nephew's family matters. He walked to a place not far from the canal and said, "Look, this is Lover's Bridge." Ian looked in the direction he was pointing. He saw that there was a bridge about 7 to 8 feet above the canal. The two ends of the bridge were submerged in the tall stone walls on both sides. This bridge was a suspension bridge. It swayed and was very narrow. It could barely allow 1.5 people to cross. If there were 2 people, they would have to be very close to each other. The bridge was made of wooden planks. However, the gaps between the planks were very large. If one was not careful, they would fall. Just looking at this kind of suspension bridge made people feel terrified. If one walked on it, they would see the torrential river. Moreover, it was high up. A timid person would probably be scared to the point of peeing their pants. This is Jiang's Lover's Bridge. Cui Yuezhi sounded proud. Only courageous people who are deeply in love with each other dare to walk on this bridge. If they walk on it, the water god will bless them. These 2 lovers will never be separated. After he said this, he patted his chest. I've only walked on it 4 times. Ian looked at the 4 concubines behind him. He did not say anything, but he was very puzzled. Would the water god really bless them if they walked on it too many times? Wouldn't they feel offended? Moreover, to be together with several people for a lifetime without being separated, it sounded a little too disrespectful. If she walked on it, she would only walk on it once in her life, and she would only walk with one person. When she thought about this, she felt that she was thinking too much. What did this have to do with her? In this life, she probably would not have this opportunity. This opportunity is hard to come by. Huanqing Yin, you 2 should walk on it too. Yin? Yin, are you afraid of heights? Cui Yuezhi smiled. Don't worry. Even if you fall, there are people around you who will be responsible for catching you. You should know that there are thousands of lovers who walk on Lover's Bridge every year, but only a few cross it. If there is any danger, they would not be allowed to cross the bridge. Crossing the bridge is just a test of courage and love. He looked careless, but when he mentioned this, he was especially meticulous. Love will give you courage. Courage born from love will make you invincible. Hien thought, but there is no love between Xiao Ju and me. So where did the courage come from? Concubine Wei smiled and agreed. That's right, Miss Yuyan. Didn't you say that young Master Huanqing is obedient to you and dotes on you? He loves you so much, so he will definitely protect you and walk on the bridge together safely. Their discussion was so heated that some people in the surrounding crowd could hear them. Hien and Xiao Ju were both outstanding, so the people around them started to jeer kindly. Young Master, walk on the bridge with Miss Yuyan. After crossing Lover's Bridge, you will love each other until your hair turns white. Go on. Seeing that you are a perfect match, the water god will bless you. Hien was clustered in the middle of the crowd. Hearing the jeers around him, he felt helpless. However, Lin Shuanghe did not mind the commotion. He also laughed and said, "That's right. Since we are already here, let's walk on the bridge and show them. Our Hu province's young master is very brave." Cui Yuezhi patted Xiao Ju's shoulder. Moreover, Her Highness loves lovers whose love is stronger than gold. If you can cross Lover's Bridge, it will be much more convenient when I bring you into the prince's mansion to see Her Highness. Princess Mu Hongjin. Hien was stunned. Xiao Ju frowned slightly and said, "Okay, Hien, young master?" She did not really have to walk on this Lover's Bridge, did she? She was not afraid of heights, nor was she afraid of the water god, nor was she afraid of crossing the bridge. However, when these three things were added together with Xiao Ju, why did it sound so creepy? It was ridiculous. Xiao Ju turned to look at her and said calmly, "Are you afraid?" "I'm not afraid of anything else." Hien whispered, "I'm afraid of damaging your reputation." His gaze was indifferent and his tone was calm. "I've already damaged it so many times. This time won't make a difference." Hien. Coincidentally, she was pushed to the end of Lover's Bridge with Xiao Ju. When she walked to the end of the bridge, she realized that the bridge was narrower than it looked from below. The gap between the wooden planks was especially large. It was almost as if they had to jump to cross the bridge. It was fine for one person to walk up, but if there were two people, they would have to stick close to each other. Naturally, they could not use Qinggong. They could only try to maintain their balance and rely on the tacit understanding of the person beside them. With a little bit of luck, they could cross the bridge. Hien cursed in his heart. It would be fine if they knew martial arts. Thinking about it, if a weak scholar brought a lady to cross the bridge, it would be strange if they did not fall. Although there was someone below to catch them, they would still be frightened. Moreover, it was not a good sign. They would be looking for bad luck for no reason. The water god's conditions were too harsh. Cui Yuezhi and the others did not come up. They only looked at them from afar. Lin Shuanghe shouted loudly, "Young master, madam, the water god will definitely protect you." Qi Wu was speechless. He whispered to Fei Nu, "Young master has sacrificed too much this time. If it was fake, it would be fine. They would have walked for nothing. If the water god was real, it was too scary. Two men would never leave each other's side for life. Their young master did not have homosexual tendencies. If the old master was in the ground, he would be so angry that he would come back to life." Thinking about this, he felt that this was inappropriate. He could only pray in his heart. It's a temporary measure, a temporary measure. Water God, please be magnanimous. Please don't take it seriously. Hien looked at the narrow bridge and felt troubled. He asked Xiao Ju, "How do we walk? Walk one by one? Do you think we can walk one by one?" Xiao Ju asked in return. Hien lowered his head and looked at the crowd on the shore. He said helplessly, "Maybe not." Xiao Ju stretched out her hand and said, "Hold on to me." The hand that was exposed from her sleeve was slender and well-defined. Hien hesitated for a moment. He did not grab her hand. He only grabbed her wrist. Seeing that Xiao Ju did not have any reaction, his heart calmed down. He encouraged himself again and again in his heart. It's just a festival. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. They're not real lovers. There's no need to think too much. We just have to cross the bridge quickly. Let's go. Xiao Ju walked forward. The two of them walked onto the bridge together. As soon as he stepped on the bridge, the suspension bridge began to sway and tremble, as if it was going to throw him off. The weight of the wooden planks could not allow two people to walk side by side. The only way was to be close to each other. However, Xiao Ju and Yin could not do that. Therefore, Yin could only walk slightly forward while Xiao Ju followed behind. He used his hands to protect Yin's side and staggered a little. However, this way, it looked like Xiao Ju was holding Yin in his arms, and the two of them walked forward together. Yin was a little uncomfortable at such a close distance. If he raised his head slightly, his forehead would almost touch Xiao Ju's chin. He could only look straight ahead and pretend as if nothing had happened. She said, "Commander-in-Chief, this bridge is shaking so much that it's difficult to walk. Why don't we use Qigong, or pretend that we can't walk and fall? Someone will catch us anyway." After a moment of silence, Xiao Ju said, "Step on my boots. Hold on tight." Yin was stunned. "That's not good, right? Hurry up." Since he had already said so, Yin could not refuse again. Moreover, it was indeed much simpler for two people to walk on the Lover's Bridge. However, where should he put his hands if he were to step on his boots? If he put his hands on his waist, it would seem a little ambiguous. However, if he grabbed his wrist like he did just now, it would be too unstable. After thinking about it, Yin reached out and clasped his shoulders. He could barely maintain his balance. "Hold on tight," Xiao Ju said. As she spoke, she held the two ropes of the suspension bridge with both hands and slowly walked forward. In the past, it was not that no one had thought of other methods. For example, a man would carry his beloved girl and directly cross the bridge. However, it was the first time that one person stepped on the other person's boots and walked on the other person's path. If one were to say that this was smart, it was smart and moving. However, if one were to say that it was intimate, it seemed a little restrained. The crowd under the bridge was a little confused, but they did not think too deeply about it. They just assumed that the young masters and young ladies from Wu province were not as open as Jiyang and did not like to do anything overly intimate in public. That was why they acted this way. However, in the eyes of the people who came with them, there was a big difference. Qi Wu immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked at Yin as if he had sullied his master. He only said hatefully, "How can it be like this? This brat is taking all the advantage." Who was the one taking advantage? Yin on the bridge wanted to cry, but had no tears. The suspension bridge was extremely unstable. With every step that Xiao Ju took, it swayed violently. His steps were very steady and his expression was also calm. Yin felt his heart beating very fast. When they reached the middle of the bridge, the wooden plank under Xiao Ju's feet seemed to be unstable. He stepped on it and his body tilted, almost falling down. Yin was shocked and instinctively reached out to wrap his arms around Xiao Ju's neck. When he came back to his senses, both of them were stunned. The distance between them was very close. If his lips were a millimeter closer, Yin's lips would have touched the corner of his mouth. Yin looked up and met Xiao Ju's limpid eyes. At this moment, Xiao Ju's eyes were deep like a bottomless pool with layers of ripples. The handsome young man's thin lips were tightly pursed, and his Adam's apple moved slightly. For a moment, he seemed to want to say something. However, after a while, he gently turned his head away. Yin was extremely embarrassed. She whispered, "I'm sorry." Xiao Ju did not answer. Yin did not dare to look at Xiao Ju's face. For some reason, he felt that the atmosphere had become awkward. In his heart, he only hoped that they could quickly finish walking on the bridge. On the other side of the bridge, the crowd was looking forward to the show. Xiao Ju steadied himself and continued to walk forward. Yin saw that they were about to reach the end of the bridge. He was delighted and immediately let out a long sigh of relief. Secretly, he thought that this was even more torturous than the day training at the martial arts arena. When Xiao Ju reached the end of the bridge, Yin could not wait and said, "We're here, we're here." She wanted to take a step back and increase the distance between her and Xiaoju, who knew that the suspension bridge had not been repaired for many years and was already unstable. When she took a step back, the wooden planks behind her flipped, and she stepped on nothing. Xiaoju softly reprimanded, "Be careful." Tian grabbed her and pulled her to his side. Tian followed the force and fell forward. She only felt that she had fallen into a warm embrace. She subconsciously steadied herself and raised her head to look. It would have been better if she did not move. Once she moved, the other party seemed to be looking down at her as well. Thus, a warm and soft thing that was as light as a feather brushed past her forehead. It was only for a moment, and then it was gone. She froze on the spot. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.